Chapter 621. The killing intent here is extremely dense. But I don't sense any blood at all. How strange. One of the purple-robed men said with a serious expression. He lowered his head and tried his best to sense the abnormality in the air. After a while, he said, there are two different powerful killing intents here. From the looks of it, there are indeed two people fighting here. As for that woman, she did not participate in the battle. Ma Jiangming, does that dog nose of yours have any other uses other than finding women to torture? He was just searching for the aura here when he heard the latter half of Ma Jiangming's words. He could not help but feel extremely unhappy. In truth, the moment they saw that the person who had come here with them was actually this perverted Ma Jiangming, the two purple-robed men were already extremely dissatisfied. Why were they walking together with this kind of trash pervert? Second brother Wan, what do you mean by that? Ma Jiangming rolled his eyes. This daddy likes to torture women, what does that have to do with you? Why are you pointing the spearhead at me for no reason at all? These two purple-robed men were called Ruan Yin and Ruan Yang. They were brothers of the same bloodline. The eldest was only born an hour earlier than the second. The older generation gave these two people a nickname, Yin and Yang softened together. Ruan Yang snorted coldly and said disdainfully, Ma Jiangming, look at how lewd you are when you say those words. This old man doesn't even want to bother with you. What's wrong with this old man's appearance? Lewd? Ma Jiangming yelled angrily. No matter how lewd this old man is, I've never done anything to your sister. What does it have to do with you? What did you say? Ruan Yin and Ruan Yang raised their heads at the same time, their hands on the hilt of their swords as they glared at Ma Jiangming. Ma Jiangming, today, you will pay the price for those words of yours. The leader of the white-robed men hurriedly tried to mediate the situation. What are you all doing? The enemy is right in front of us, and the humiliation of the three holy lands has yet to be avenged. We should be united against a common enemy. Why are you all fighting amongst yourselves with just a few words? If everyone speaks a little less, wouldn't there be no more problems? At the same time, he was feeling extremely gloomy in his heart. Look at this group of people I've been assigned to, they're either perverts or madmen. None of them are willing to submit to the other, and there's no way to coordinate them. As a temporary commander, he didn't have any control over these people at all. It was really fucked up to the extreme. Bai Wu Xin. Who do you think you are? Do you really think you're a commander? Mind your own business. Sure enough, the three of them roared at the white-robed man. Bai Wu Xin's face turned purple as he waved his sleeves angrily and snorted coldly. Fine, fine, fine. Then you guys fight to your heart's content. Fight until both sides are heavily injured, and you won't rest until one of you is dead. It would be best if you meet that brat Chu Chihuan after the fight is over. That way, he can join in the fun and take advantage of the situation. The three of them had almost come to blows several times along the way. It was unknown whether it was because of their bad horoscopes or something else, but they had never stopped fighting from the beginning to the end. Ruan Yin snorted coldly. It was clear that he was fearful of the supreme assassin Chu Chihuan. He gave his younger brother a look, then turned around and continued to check the messy footprints on the ground, hoping to find some useful clues. Just at this time, there was a sudden chi sound, and a sharp chi shot towards his back. Ruan Yin spun around like a bolt of lightning, grabbing the object in his hand. It was as thin as a strand of hair, and as cold as ice, it melted in a flash. It was actually a tiny ice needle. His face was filled with the vicissitudes of life, but his heart was not old at all. Could it be that this was Ma Jiangming's soul-chasing shadowless needle? Ruan Yin flew into a rage and retreated rapidly. With a schwa sound, his sword appeared in his hand, and a round sword light slashed towards Ma Jiangming. Surnamed Ma, you're too despicable. This daddy has already magnanimously let you off, but you still want to stab me in the back. Although Wan Yang did not know what had happened, he could clearly feel the rage in his elder brother's heart when he saw his elder brother turn around and fly into a rage. Without even thinking, he unsheathed his sword and followed behind his elder brother. With a thunderous roar, he slashed towards Ma Jiangming. Although Ma Jiangming had been quarreling with the two Ruan brothers on the way here, he was still able to look at the bigger picture. Moreover, both sides had their own misgivings, so they did not really take action. At this moment, he was completely caught off guard, and did not expect that the two of them would actually attack without any regard for their feelings. Caught off guard, Ma Jiangming was nearly dismembered by the two brothers on the spot. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, he was already drenched in cold sweat. The cotton-padded clothes on his body were split open from top to bottom. Even the unlined shirt inside was split in half, revealing his bony chest. On it, a clear red mark could be seen. It was a wound caused by the sword chi. Just a hair's breadth difference, and his stomach would have been split open. The more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. Ma Jiangming felt as if he had just been on the brink of death, and all the hairs on his body stood on end. In a fit of rage, he roared, "Wan Yin, Wan Yang, it was just a battle of tongues, and the two of you actually dared to attack with such killing intent. Do you really think that this old man is afraid of you two brothers?" His hands suddenly swiped at his waist, and a long sword appeared. With a wave of his left hand, several steel needles appeared in his hand. In a fit of rage, he attacked. The Ruan brothers were even more enraged. "Did you think that this daddy didn't know that you were sneaking up on us? So shameless, and you still dare to say that it was just a battle of tongues. Hypocrites to the extreme." Ding ding dang dang, the three of them instantly engaged in battle. This sudden turn of events not only surprised Hermitage by Wu Xian and the others, even Chu Chihuan, who was secretly preparing to act, was stunned. Just what was going on? It was just a battle of tongues. Why did they suddenly attack with such killing intent? They were on the same side, fighting each other to the death. What kind of logic was this? Great Assassin Chu had originally made use of the snowstorm to conceal himself and sneak over. He was just about to make a move to kill them. He had also seen that Ma Jiangming and the Ruan brothers did not see eye to eye with each other, so he decided to take them down one by one. Who would have thought that before he could make a move, the three of them would actually start fighting amongst themselves? Furthermore, it was not the kind of fake fight that was used to lure the enemy. Instead, it was a real fight. Each of them was enraged and filled with indignation, as if they were going to fight to the death. With the cultivation of a superior supreme, how could they be so stupid? Not to mention the fact that there was a powerful enemy attacking them at any time. At such a critical moment, they still wanted to kill each other. Chu Chi-hun was truly puzzled. He couldn't understand Ma Jiangming's actions at all. "You've already been persuaded to leave. You're just one person, while the other party has two people. Why are you still so persistent? Could it be that this weathered old fellow is really addicted to looking for trouble? I've never seen such a despicable superior suprema," but what he didn't know was that Ma Jiangming was the one who was being wrongly accused. The ice needle that Boss Ruan had been struck by was not from Ma Jiangming at all. It was the work of Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao, who had been hiding in the shadows. Ma Jiangming was completely unaware of this, and he was currently feeling extremely indignant in his heart. Young Master Jun Mo Xia saw that there was a conflict between the three of them. So, how could he not take advantage of this opportunity to stir up trouble and fan the flames, and add fuel to the fire? And, how could he not wish for the world to be in chaos? The greater the conflict between you guys, the better. It would be best if it turned into a life and death grudge. That would be even more satisfying. Fight, fight, fight. It would be best if you all perish together. The two assassins were waiting in the shadows, ready to make their move at any time. Chu Chihuan made use of everything he could, as well as his own unique cultivation technique. His concealment was flawless. As for Jun Moxie, he had activated the yin-yang escape technique and directly disappeared without a trace. And he had already made his move. And the moment he made his move, the effect was immediate. Extremely good. Ma Jiangming was only one person. Naturally, he wouldn't be able to fight against the Ruan brothers, two supreme-level experts. But how could Jun Moxie allow him to be defeated so easily and extinguish this internal fire that he had worked so hard to ignite? That would be such a waste, and he would be so unwilling. What a waste of their exquisite martial arts. Thus, young Master Jun held a ball of ice in his hand and shot out ice needles one after another. Their trajectories were strange and inexplicable, and their angles were crafty and strange, forcing the Ruan brothers to howl and cry out in pain. Ma Jiangming, who was fighting 1 against 2, became more and more valiant as he fought. He could feel that the Ruan brothers would immediately be thrown into confusion wherever he pointed his sword at them. In an instant, his heroic spirit rose, and he laughed sinisterly. Bai Wu Xan tried to persuade them, but it was to no avail. No one paid any attention to this temporary commander, and he could only watch the show from the side. But even he didn't expect that the battle between the three would become more and more intense. This was especially so for the Ruan brothers. 2 supremes and above, they should have the upper hand in a 2-on-1 battle. But as the battle progressed, they would often be on the losing end. Their hatred for Ma Jiangming had sunk into their bones, they could not afford to lose this much face. Their necks, thighs, and other parts of their bodies had been pierced by the ice needles for an unknown number of times. Even though the 2 of them had achieved a high level of Xian cultivation, it was unlikely that they would sustain any serious injuries. However, the piercing pain was unbearable for them. That was not all, but their buttocks were constantly being pierced by the ice needles. How could they not be enraged? Those places were not fatal, but they were extremely humiliating. This was not killing them, but toying with them. Thus, the 2 brothers' eyes turned red. At the start, they only wanted to teach Ma Jiangming a lesson. But the more they fought, the angrier they became. Gradually, their killing intent surged, and they would not rest until they were dead. The cause of this killing intent was actually very simple. Ruan Yang's buttocks had been pierced by another needle. But this time, the location of the needle could be said to be extremely narrow. It had actually pierced directly into his anus. As everyone knew, the flesh in that area was extremely tender. Furthermore, it was a place where Xian Qi could not protect. Thus, the pain was even more unbearable than being cut by a knife. Thus, Ruan Yang, who was unlucky enough to be hit, immediately jumped up with a loud cry. Besides, the temperature in that area was extremely high. Before he could even deal with it himself, it had already melted inside, snow and blood flowed out of his body, and Second Master Ruan looked like he was on his period. Furthermore, it was his first period. He was in an extremely sorry state. His entire crotch was cold, slippery, and wet. What a disgrace. Chapter 622. Ruan Yang was like an enraged lion that had a red-hot iron rod shoved into its buttocks. With a loud roar, his entire body seemed to swell up by an entire size in an instant. The jade crown on his head exploded with a peng sound, and his long hair fluttered wildly in the air. It was as if the seaweed at the bottom of the sea had suddenly encountered a hurricane. Despicable and filthy Ma Jiangming, you despicable bastard. You treacherous and despicable villain, die for this daddy. Second young Master Ruan roared with bloodshot eyes. His eyes were wide open, and he was completely focused on attacking, not defending at all. He was in a state of desperation. Opening wide and attacking crazily. Success. Jun Moxie left the battlefield, feeling extremely pleased with himself. From the looks of it, the 3 of them would not rest until they fought to the death. This young master's goal has been achieved. How was it? This young master's methods are not bad, right? Did you understand? Jun Moxie transmitted his voice proudly to Chu Chihuan. It was as if he was planning a strategy in a tent, and the outcome of the battle had been decided 1,000 miles away. In any case, one could tell from his voice that he was extremely lewd. What? You're saying that the internal strife between the three of them was caused by you? Chu Chihuan was startled, and his figure was almost exposed. At this time, he was using a unique technique to hide behind a withered branch of a small dogwood tree, preparing to attack at any time. Borrowing the cover of the snowstorm, no one actually discovered that there was a killing god hiding just 20 zhang away. Of course, this young master only used a small trick, and the three of them immediately started to fight amongst themselves. Jun Moxie continued to transmit his voice proudly. How did you do it? Chu Chihuan was extremely curious. This was no longer a trick, it was a miracle. He had silently caused them to fight amongst themselves, and the most terrifying thing was that this young master had not even been exposed yet. I can fight with my wits, why use brute force? This young master has always been resourceful and resourceful. This young master merely imitated Ma Jiangming's methods of using hidden weapons, then pinched a handful of snow needles and pierced it into that second brother Ruan's chrysanthemum, and they immediately started fighting amongst themselves. Ha ha ha, how lively. Jun Moxie laughed proudly. In the anus? What chrysanthemum? Chu Chihuan was, after all, a native of the Xian continent. He did not understand the meaning of this highly civilized language. He thought to himself, do people have chrysanthemums on their bodies? How could it be so useful if it was penetrated into the anus? Then he would have to carry a few hundred chrysanthemums with him in the future. It's, in the bedroom, do you understand? How ignorant and ill-informed. How dare you force a famous scholar like me to use such disgusting words? Jun Moxie laughed obscenely and said happily, don't you think that the shape of that place looks like a blooming daisy? Remember, from now on, that place will be called Chrysanthemum. How civilized. In that instant, Chu Chihuan almost choked to the point that his internal organs were on fire. This daddy really did not pay much attention to it. Besides, which man would pay attention to that place for no reason? Wouldn't that be so bored that his balls hurt? Just a look at it would make him feel so disgusted that he wouldn't be able to eat for 3 days. Especially when he was looking at his own, no wonder that Wan Yang suddenly went crazy while he was fighting. So that was the case. Long live understanding awe. Who would feel good when that place was suddenly poked by someone? This was not just a matter of pain, it was also a matter of the face of a superior supreme expert. Such an expert was poked in the anus. The anus? Chu Chihuan suddenly felt that he was very lucky. If that brat had also done that to him during the battle earlier. Thinking of this famous supreme assassin felt his anus tighten. Then, a chill shot up from his tailbone all the way to his neck. In that instant, his hair stood on end, and he did not dare to think any further. It was too frightening. Just thinking about it was already like that, and that second brother Wan had suffered a solid hit. Heavens ah, great earth ah, just what kind of person is this brat, to have so many despicable methods ah. The situation of the battle changed in an instant, and in the blink of an eye, the situation had already reversed. Ma Jiangming, who did not know that he had reinforcements, was actually fighting 1 against 2. He could not help but feel extremely pleased with himself as he mocked, ha ha ha, as expected of the yin-yang softness. You two brothers truly live up to your nickname ah, trash like this actually dares to call yourselves superior supremes. Looks like the illusory blood sea really does not have anyone else. No wonder that Chu Chihuan was able to kill 3 superior supremes of your illusory blood sea in 1 move. So the so-called superior supremes of your illusory blood sea are actually this kind of trash, no wonder, no wonder. As the saying goes, retribution comes the fastest. Following Wan Yang's rage, Ma Jiangming suddenly felt the pressure multiply. Without Jun Moxie secretly restraining them, the 2 Wan brothers were like 2 ferocious tigers that had just been released from their cages, roaring and launching a massive counterattack. Ma Jiangming had suddenly fallen into a whirlpool of death where he could attack and defend with ease. The three of them were all experts of the same level. 2 against 1, Ma Jiangming was already at an absolute disadvantage. Furthermore, because he had been so relaxed earlier, he had let down his guard. Now, the side with the advantage in numbers had taken the initiative to fight with their lives on the line. From the start, Ma Jiangming had only wanted to teach the two brothers a lesson, and that was all. The difference in his attitude had directly led to the outcome of the battle. With a peng sound, Ma Jiangming was thrown into a fluster for a moment before he managed to block the sharp swords of the two brothers with great difficulty. However, he was still kicked viciously, and his entire body was sent flying with a so sound. Ma Jiangming borrowed the momentum to soar into the sky, roaring loudly, "Wan brothers, could it be that you really want to fight to the death with this old man today? You've been causing trouble for no reason, and this old man has already tolerated enough. You should know when to advance and when to retreat. Lest things become difficult between our two holy lands, fuck your grandmother, you bastards still want to be a human. Just wait to become a ghost." Wang Yang roared loudly, not letting up in the slightest. His body spun rapidly on the snowy ground, and the thick layer of snow seemed to be lifted up as well. A dazzling sword light suddenly formed a long dragon, its entire body covered in dazzling lightning. Man and sword as one, it pierced towards Ma Jiangming. Ruan Yin was afraid that his brother would die, so he also followed suit and rushed forward. If he didn't kill Ma Jiangming, he wouldn't rest. This was already a situation where he wouldn't rest until he was dead. The situation changed in an instant, completely out of everyone's expectations. A moment ago, Ma Jiangming had still held the upper hand. But now, he was actually facing the frightening sword chi of two men as one. Life and death were separated by a hair's breadth. Ma Jiangming's hair stood on end, and he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. "Fuck your mother, so you two brats really wanted to kill this old man. You even used man and sword as one. Do you really think this old man is made of mud? This old man will bet this move with you two brothers. Let's see who will emerge victorious." The long sword danced crazily in the air, and a strong gust of wind rose from the tip of the sword. With a single slash, a woo sound rang out, shaking the entire sky. 10,000 rays of sword light shot down from the sky. At the same time, his left hand continued to wave, and bright rays of light continuously shot out from his hand, disappearing in a flash. This was Ma Jiangming's true killing move, and also the reason why the Ruan brothers had always been suspicious of it, soul-chasing shadowless needle. The three of them were like meteors crashing into the earth, flying at their highest speed. Moreover, they were using all of their killing moves to determine life and death. The hearts of the Ruan brothers were filled with shame and indignation, but how could Ma Jiangming's heart not be filled with anger and resentment? "Just what did I do to you guys? Wasn't it just a joke that went a little overboard? Are you guys that bad at jokes? Then why are you still in the pugilistic world? To actually want to kill this old man just because of a single sentence, the three of them used a terrifying aura of irreconcilable hatred as they clashed fiercely against each other without any room for negotiation. Bai Wu Xian had been watching the entire time. At the start, the three of them were only attacking and defending, so he was naturally not too worried. But in the blink of an eye, the three of them had already engaged in a life and death battle. This sudden turn of events was completely out of his expectations, and his eyes almost bulged out of their sockets. Just as he was about to shout out to stop them and even make a move to separate the three of them actually used man and sword as one. This old man really has 8 lifetimes worth of bad luck to be your temporary commander. To be in the same team as these two groups of people, it was already a miracle that he hadn't died from anger until now. Fuck you girls, do you really have to fight to the death at this critical juncture? Where is the demeanor of an expert? Where is the bigger picture? He roared in anger. Fight! Fight! If we fight to the death, this old man will finally be able to rest in peace. You're already a fucking 100 years old, but you're still so troublesome. Apart from the 3 people on the battlefield and Bai Wu Xian, the other 4 people stared unblinkingly at the 3 experts fighting with their lives on the line. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. These 4 people only had the cultivation of a supreme being, they were not strong enough to participate in a higher-level battle. Right at this time, something strange happened again. A cold light suddenly flashed out from the snow like a bolt of lightning. Almost as soon as it appeared, it pierced through the abdomen of the Hermitage Supremacy expert, piercing right through his crotch. An abnormally powerful Xian Qi instantly blasted apart the internal organs of the Hermitage expert. At the same time, the sword light suddenly disappeared, and with another flash of cold light, another Supremacy expert was chopped in half at the waist. Following that, the cold light flashed again, piercing towards Bai Wu Xian's neck like a boat sailing on the current. All done in one go. These 3 swords might sound slow in description, but in truth, they had all happened in an instant. 2 experts had fallen to the ground, and the temporary commander Bai Wu Xian's life was also in danger. At this time, Bai Wu Xian was so angry that his chest was about to explode. But at this time, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. Relying on the shocking intuition of a supremacy expert, he charged forward without hesitation. But a sharp pain came from the back of his head, and a deep gash of blood appeared from his neck to the top of his head. Even his skull had suffered a heavy injury, and his brain was just a hair's breadth away from bursting out. Fresh blood sprayed out from the back of his head like a mist, dyeing the snow in the sky a beautiful color. In another direction, a dreamlike color suddenly appeared. Although it was hazy, its speed was like the fury of a lightning god. Chapter 623. The 2 Supreme Xian experts from the Supreme Golden City saw that Ma Jiangming had fallen into a disadvantageous position and were just about to raise their swords to help when they suddenly felt something flash in front of them. Before they could even raise their guard, one of them suddenly fell to the ground with a strange expression on his face. A bloody hole had already appeared behind his neck. The other person was shocked and panicked, screaming madly as he tried to dodge. But how could he make it in time? With a schwa sound, a sword slashed down from his shoulder all the way to his abdomen. The steaming hot viscera poured out onto the ice-cold snowy ground like a flood released from the floodgates. Bai Wu Xian howled miserably and explosively. The 2 Supreme Xian experts behind him who had already suffered fatal injuries but were still alive also howled miserably in disbelief. On the other side, one of the 2 Supreme Xian experts from the Supreme Golden City had fallen to the ground, while the other looked at the bloody guts on the ground and howled miserably in extreme fear. At this moment, he had not died yet. He could still feel the icy coldness of his guts falling onto the snow. This was a kind of extreme fear that could only be experienced in nightmares. But it had actually happened in real life. With their Xian Qi and experience, they should not have been ambushed so easily, and they did not even have the strength to retaliate. But the battle between Ma Jiangming and the Ruan brothers had turned into a life-and-death battle, and it had already attracted all their attention. Even now, the few of them were still pondering in their hearts. Just what was going on? Why did it suddenly turn into a life-and-death enmity? At such a critical moment, the 2 King of Assassins had appeared out of nowhere and attacked from behind, catching them completely off guard. Not to mention retaliating, the 2 most unlucky people were still in a daze until their deaths. The 3 people in the air discovered the tragic scene on the ground at the same time, and their hearts burned with anxiety. But they could no longer stop their attacks. The battle had already reached a critical juncture, and even if they wanted to stop, it was already too late. Hong! A shocking explosion rang out. 3 people, 3 superior Supreme Xian experts, exploded in the air with their lives on the line. 3 loud roars rang out at the same time, and 3 figures fell from 3 different directions. As they fell, they spat out mouthfuls of blood. All 3 of them had suffered heavy injuries. Especially Ma Jiangming, his injuries were the most severe. In the end, he was fighting 1 against 2, and there was a huge gap in their strength. At this moment, the emotions of Ma Jiangming, Ruan Yin, and Ruan Yang had reached an indescribable level. Astonishment, anger, pain, grief, disbelief, these complicated expressions instantly froze on the faces of the three people who were falling through the air. For powerful existences like them who stood at the peak of the world, along with the growth of their cultivation, their self-restraint and bearing would increase along with it. Normally, even if it wasn't that they didn't show their emotions, it was still more or less the same. It was difficult to find any of these expressions on their faces, but at this moment, so many complicated negative expressions were actually displayed on the 7 emotions, and it was easy to imagine how hideous their faces were. But even such a ferocious expression could not express the complex emotions they were feeling at this moment. It was even to the extent that at this moment, they'd completely forgotten to roar explosively, and they'd forgotten the hysterical roars they ought to emit from their pain. The blood fell from the sky and turned into streaks of scarlet light. However, in the eyes of the three people, the scene was the same. It was as if the whole world was frozen in that instant. Impossible. How did things turn out like this? The wretched cries of his companions, the sorrowful cries of his comrades, the wriggling body on the ground, the bloody pile of internal organs still steaming hot, the wound on Bai Wuxian's chest continued to bleed profusely, but he still did not collapse. In truth, of the 8 experts who'd just arrived, the only one who could still be considered to have any battle strength was the injured Bai Wuxian. Although his injuries were not light, they were not fatal. However, the intense pain he was feeling was something that even a superior supreme expert would not be able to endure. The pain on his neck and scalp was secondary. The most important thing was that his skull had been slashed open, and that kind of pain had penetrated deep into his bones. Penetrated deep into his soul. Bai Wuxian screamed shrilly, using all the strength in his body to vent the pain in his mind and body. At the same time, it was also a warning. He did not even turn around to look at the person who'd injured him. Because he knew very clearly that if he turned around, he would no longer have the chance to escape death. With a shrill cry, he directly activated the man and sword as one technique, turning into a streak of light that tore through the snowy skies. With a brilliant bloody light, he fled for his life. At this moment, Bai Wuxian's speed had already reached the peak of this world. With just a flash, his figure had completely disappeared from everyone's sight. This kind of extreme escaping speed that stimulated all the potential of the human body was something that even Mei Xuan would not be able to catch up to. The man and sword as one technique was an extremely powerful killing technique. From ancient times until now, Bai Wuxian was probably the first to use this technique to escape with his life. In other words, he was the first person to do so. Even when Bai Wuxian's figure had completely disappeared, Jun Moxie still did not show himself. In the air, only that shrill cry still reverberated in the air. In fact, it seemed like it was getting louder and louder. Outside the mountain valley, echoing cries could be heard from all directions. The experts of the 3 holy lands continued to pour in to provide support. The Ruan brothers and Ma Jiangming finally landed on the ground. Although that clash between them had been real, without the slightest bit of fakery, and their bodies were covered in blood and their muscles were twisted and twisted, the 3 of them who knew that they were in an unknown perilous situation immediately stood up as soon as they landed. Although there was still a trace of blood at the corner of their mouths, their bodies were still as straight as a ramrod. Chu Chihuan's figure flashed again. In the instant that they landed and stood up, a dreamlike sword light suddenly appeared. Under Wan Yin's wide eyes, the sword turned into a streak of light and pierced straight into his chest. This was Chu Chihuan's all-out attack of death. This attack of Chu Chihuan's was extremely profound. Ruan Yin was not the weakest of the 3, nor was he the most heavily injured, making him the easiest target. However, Chu Chihuan had purposely chosen him. The reason was the exact opposite. Of the 3 of them, only Ruan Yin still had the strength to fight. He was also the one with the lightest injuries. Although his injuries were not light, he was still a superior supreme expert. Ruan Yin had just landed and stood up. He had not even had the time to catch his breath. This was the best opportunity to kill him. As for the other 2, they were already half dead. As long as Ruan Yin could be eliminated first, the other two would naturally have no chance of survival. Thus, Chu Chi-hun did not even have the time to catch his breath. With the remaining power from killing 2 people in a row, he once again became one with his sword and rushed over to kill with one strike, a one-hit kill. If he waited for Ruan Yin to catch his breath, it would not be so easy to kill him anymore. This was the experience and keen senses of this supreme assassin. This sword did not hold back at all. Just as Chu Chi-hun had predicted, after the ultimate fight between 2 superior supreme experts, Ruan Yin, who had been through a shocking change, was indeed unable to avoid this sudden attack of death. He did not even have the time to catch his breath. Just as he stood up, the long sword had already pierced through his body with a bright sword light and a strong murderous aura. As the long sword entered Ruan Yin's body, the ferocious sword aura wreaked havoc in his body. The huge force even sent Ruan Yin's body flying backwards. Ruan Yin did not disappoint the strength of a superior supreme expert. Knowing that he was going to die, he let out a desperate roar at the last moment. His voice was tragic and shook the surroundings. Both his hands struck out with all his might, using all the remaining strength he had. He landed 4 consecutive palm strikes on Chu Chi-hun's body. He only managed to land 4 palm strikes. Because, in the next moment, his body had already exploded from the impact of Chu Chi-hun's sword aura, turning into a bloody mess and disappearing from the world forever. Chu Chi-hun spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. After all, the final strike of a supreme being was not so easy to endure. In the air, Ruan Yin's 4 palms, which were on the brink of death, sent him tumbling a few times like a ball, and the autumn dew invincible sword almost flew out of his hand. Ruan Yang cried out in fear, "Big brother!" Suddenly, his body shook, and he felt a chill in his chest. He looked down in surprise, and saw a shiny sword tip protruding out of his chest. A strange expression appeared on his face, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. "I was hit by a sword. How is this possible?" The shiny sword tip flashed past and disappeared. Ruan Yin roared madly and charged forward, intending to perish together with his assailant. However, his attack landed on thin air. As the last bit of his strength left him, his body was pushed back a few steps due to inertia, and he fell weakly to the ground. His legs turned soft, and he knelt on the ground. His arms swayed a few times, and his body suddenly fell backwards. His knees touched the ground, and his head fell backwards, actually touching the snow and his own heel. His entire body bent like a bow, and his eyes bulged out in anger as he suddenly stopped moving. The intense resentment in his heart made him want to see who had killed him before he died. To actually die in such a difficult position. However, he was destined to be disappointed. Because at this moment, Jun Moxie was already standing in front of his next target, Ma Jiangming. Of the 3, Ruan Yin's injuries were the lightest. Thus, Chu Chi-hun was the first to attack. Ruan Yang was the second, so Jun Moxie was the second. As for Ma Jiangming, he was the one with the heaviest injuries. He was also the only one of the 3 who had lost the ability to fight. Fighting against 2 experts of the same level by himself, it would be strange if he was not heavily injured. There was nothing to worry about. Ma Jiangming struggled to maintain his standing posture. It was obvious that he was extremely weak, as if a gust of wind could blow him over. He coughed lightly, and blood flowed continuously from his mouth. His entire body was covered with dozens of wounds, and even his face was covered with scars. From the looks of it, his face looked even more ancient. "Jun Moxie? So it's you." Ma Jiangming laughed bitterly. His body swayed, and his eyes were lifeless. "You've really surprised this old man. Where's your lover?" "Ma Jiangming, stop pretending." Jun Moxie looked at him in Lengleng's eyes. "Although your injuries were the heaviest, that is only when compared to the Ruan brothers. Your true injuries are far from what you've displayed. Trying to play tricks in front of me is useless. Also, a month of hard work, 27 consecutive days of high-intensity eruption, and it's all gone at the end of the month. I'm not resigned. I'm not resigned. I'm not resigned. Also, a month of hard work, 27 consecutive days of high-intensity eruption, and it's all gone at the end of the month. I'm not resigned. I'm not resigned. I'm not resigned. Also, a month of hard work, 27 consecutive days of high-intensity eruption, and it's all gone at the end of the month. I'm not resigned. I'm not resigned. I'm not resigned. Chapter 624. You're lucky. You actually managed to take advantage of a loophole. Ma Jiangming was so angry that his entire face had turned purple, and he looked even more sinister and frightening. If it weren't for these two bastards causing trouble for no reason and suddenly acting like they were having an epileptic fit, how could you have succeeded so easily? The heavens really toy with people, to this extent. This old man actually got together with those two bastards, it must be the will of the heavens. However, this old man managed to escape after those two bastards. This battle is this old man's victory. The will of the heavens? Ha, I can't help but admire your stupidity. You actually don't know how you died even when you're about to die. Do you think that you've won against those dead brothers? Idiot. Jun Moxie laughed loudly and raised his sword. Die. This young master has no interest in wasting time with you. Could it be that this was all you're doing? Ma Jiangming's eyes suddenly widened, and his expression slowly changed from one of shock to one of malevolence. So it was you. So it was you. Die for this old man, he roared loudly and suddenly flew up. The sky was filled with silver light, and a streak of purple lightning shot out. The momentum was not weak at all. Jun Moxie snorted coldly. His body moved slightly, and he actually disappeared from sight. When he reappeared, he was already behind Ma Jiangming, and he slashed out with his sword. Ma Jiangming's body suddenly leapt up, but it seemed like he was unable to dodge in time. Although he managed to avoid the fatal point on his back, the sword brushed past his legs and pierced into his crotch. Speaking of which, even Jun Moxie hadn't expected that this sword would actually succeed so easily. He had already prepared several moves, and was prepared to react at any time. Even if a superior supreme was heavily injured, how could it be so easy to kill a superior supreme in a frontal confrontation? After all, a frontal confrontation was different from a sneak attack. However, this sword had directly castrated Ma Jiangming, and it went so smoothly that even Jun Moxie was shocked. This kind of injury would be difficult for any man to endure. Even a superior supreme would not be an exception. In the end, that was the most painful part of a man. However, a sudden change occurred. Just as Jun Moxie thought that he had succeeded, Ma Jiangming, who had clearly been struck in his vitals, suddenly retreated at full speed. It was as if he did not feel the sword at all, as if he did not even feel the slightest bit of pain. With a backhand slap, he landed a heavy blow on Jun Moxie's shoulder. Jun Moxie was greatly surprised. He didn't expect that this guy, as a man's most important part, could still be so vigorous and fierce. He was really a fierce person. A cracking sound came from his shoulder, and the bones seemed to have been dislocated. With a muffled groan, he was sent flying with his sword. To his surprise, he discovered that the sword was as cool as water and there was not a single trace of blood on it. He could not help but widen his eyes. As he flew backwards, he could not help but exclaim in surprise, "Fuck me. So you don't have anything down there." A man's greatest pain was indeed something that no man could endure. The only ones who could endure it were those who were not men. Ma Jiangming laughed heartily as he chased after them with a sinister look on his face. That's right. I don't have anything down there. You didn't expect this, right? Ha ha ha. He was laughing so loudly, as if it was a glorious thing to be proud of that he didn't have anything down there. He even seemed a little proud of himself. Jun Moxie could not understand what was going on at this moment. In the distance, Chu Chihuan, who was meditating, could not help but retch. As a man, he was actually so proud of himself when he didn't have anything down there. No wonder this fellow loved to torture beautiful women to death. So that was the reason. It was because he was helpless in front of beautiful women. Jun Moxie was both angry and amused at the same time. No wonder this fellow was still able to retaliate. His shoulder was burning with pain, but he still laughed heartily. Fuck, so you don't have anything down there. It's rare for you to be so proud of yourself. You really are a fucking genius. At this time, Ma Jiangming had already caught up to him. With a sinister smile, he said, so what if this daddy doesn't have it? It's precisely because I don't have that thing that I've saved this daddy's life. You do have it, but it's going to be wasted. This daddy will make sure that you won't be able to use it even once in the future. He attacked fiercely. Swords, silver needles, fists, and kicks rained down like a torrential storm. Jun Moxie laughed heartily, and his entire body disappeared inexplicably in the midst of his laughter. Right in front of Ma Jiangming, under his widened eyes, Chu Yang had mysteriously disappeared without a trace. Ma Jiangming's sure-kill attack had been unleashed with a ahang sound, but the person in front of him had already disappeared. He could not help but be startled. Turning around, he raised his guard. Suddenly, he felt a heart-wrenching pain in his crotch. With a strange cry, his entire body was sent flying into the air, flailing about wildly. Jun Moxie had ruthlessly kicked Ma Jiangming's crotch from below. The huge force of the kick had sent Ma Jiangming's body flying into the air. Ma Jiangming didn't even have the time to scream before another invisible kick landed on the same spot. In the air, Jun Moxie shouted coldly, I'll let you have nothing down there. I'll let you be fucking proud that you don't have anything down there. 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 Following a series of curses, kick after kick landed on the same spot. Ma Jiangming's body continued to be kicked upwards, and his lower body also continued to be kicked fiercely, all of them landing on the same spot. Not to mention that Ma Jiangming didn't have anything down there to begin with. Even if he did, he wouldn't be able to recognize it now. At the very least, he wouldn't be able to recognize what it was. Below, Chu Chihuan's mouth was wide open, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. He watched as Ma Jiangming shot upwards like a rocket. He was already over 100 zhang above the ground, and he was still persevering to rise higher into the sky. Hearing the continuous sounds of kicks, Chu Chihuan suddenly felt as if the roots of his teeth had gone soft. From the strength of these kicks, this old man with a face full of vicissitudes of life would probably die within 2 more kicks. It must have been tough for Jun Moxie to actually kick him 200 times in one go. This guy who doesn't have anything down there is a pervert. That guy who has something down there is also a pervert. Motherfuckers are all more perverted than this daddy. This was the conclusion that Chu Chihuan came to. With a so sound, Jun Moxie appeared in front of him, and said hurriedly, Quick, dodge, the people from the 3 holy lands are coming again. There are at least 100 of them this time. Just now, he had risen to the sky, and he had clearly seen the silhouettes of people flying over with the speed of the wind, more than 100 people. This was definitely a terrifying force. With their current strength, they definitely wouldn't be able to contend against such a strong force. Chu Chihuan was still in a state of shock. He raised his head and looked at the sky. Ma Jiangming was still flying upwards, and he had already shrunk to the size of a soybean. Then, he looked at Jun Moxie in front of him, and was still puzzled. How did this brat suddenly come down? That guy who doesn't have anything down there is still flying up like a little bird that was beaten by him. How did he suddenly appear on the ground? Jun Dashao pulled Chu Chihuan up, and rushed into the snow cave where Mei Shuiyan and Dongfang Wen Xian were hiding. There was no time for him to say anything, and he immediately activated the power of water. Snow was formed by water, and in the end, it was still a form of water. The snow under the four of them suddenly rose into the air, revealing the solid ground. The four of them landed on the ground at the same time. Before Chu Chihuan had the time to be surprised, Jun Moxie pressed down with his hands, and Chu Chihuan felt that he was falling down endlessly, as if there was a natural bottomless abyss below him. Are you trying to kill me? What's going on? Isn't this too fantastical? Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In the outside world, countless figures were flashing everywhere. Just as Jun Moxie and Chu Chihuan disappeared, they arrived at the snowy ground where a fierce battle had just happened. From afar, there were still many figures rushing over as if they were old men. On the snowy ground, everything was red. Fresh blood was dripping everywhere. The two halves of his body were separated by a long distance. His arms were still in a crawling position. There were also pieces of flesh scattered evenly on the snowy ground. Guan Yang was using that weird posture to support himself on the snowy ground. He was already completely dead. There was another person with his stomach full of intestines and organs hanging out. Obviously, he was in extreme pain before he died. From the looks of it, the other half of his body had struggled for a long time, because the other half of his body was still 3 zhang away. In the middle, there was a thin intestine that had been pulled out, and there seemed to still be some heat left. Such a scene, even hell would not be so cruel, right? Everyone stared blankly at the scene in front of them. At the same time, they felt their stomachs churning and their Adam's apple bobbing up and down, as if they were swallowing something. But their faces were filled with hatred, and their eyes were filled with endless hatred. The people from the 3 holy lands had finally arrived. There were actually close to 150 people. And this was only those who were nearby. There were still quite a number of people who had rushed over without hearing the news. The different attire of the 3 holy lands was especially dazzling on the snowy ground. Cruel. This supreme assassin Chu Chihuan is truly vicious and evil to the extreme. If we don't get rid of him, the pugilistic world will not be at peace. On the side of the hermitage, an old man with a snowy white beard looked at the scene in front of him with pity and sighed deeply. Second master is right. Chu Chihuan actually dared to torture the people of our 3 holy lands like this. If we catch him, we will definitely cut him into pieces and grind his bones into ashes. The one who spoke was precisely Zi Jinghong. At this moment, his face was a little twisted. Looking at Guan Yang of the illusory blood sea dying in such a strange manner, the anger and grief in his heart had already reached the limit. In order to encircle and kill Chu Chihuan, the illusory blood sea had already lost 5 superior supreme experts. At this moment, this lawless and resourceful illusory blood sea looked at the benevolent old man in front of him with a hint of fear and evasion in his eyes. It was as if his soul was trembling. The person whom he called second master was the leader of the Hermitage's operation this time. Obviously, the Hermitage was really angry this time, and he was really hurt. They actually sent out this human king who was second only to the palace lord. This second master had a benevolent look and a sincere face. In fact, he even looked a little wooden. His eyes were full of compassion for the state of the universe and the fate of mankind. At a glance, he looked like a typical good person. If there was a story of a farmer and a snake in this world, then everyone would believe that the farmer in the story was him. He was really too kind, too honest. This kind of person would definitely be easy to talk to, very soft-hearted, and very understanding of others. In summary, this person was definitely very gullible. This was the first impression of everyone who saw him for the first time. Chapter 625. Third Watch. This person was a standard gentleman who could be deceived. However, those who were familiar with this person knew that he was an extremely venomous rattlesnake. A person who looked like a gentleman was never a real gentleman. He was more hypocritical than a crocodile and more ruthless than a wolf. Blood-handed gentleman, good dead soul, these were his nicknames. His name was very kind, it was called Jinsibei. This name was kind and funny, but no one in the world dared to laugh at it. They did not even dare to laugh behind their backs. This was because Gensibe was not merciful at all. 200 years ago, there was a city lord who offended him. He went to the city lord's door to denounce him, but he was surrounded by the army. In a fit of rage, Gensibe went on a killing spree for 3 days and 3 nights. With his own strength, he completed the magnificent feat of slaughtering a city. After all, although the city was small, it still had a population of nearly 100,000 people in it. There were soldiers, Xian cultivators, officials, and commoners among them. This Gensibe did not distinguish between right and wrong and killed them all. The old, the weak, the women, and the children were not spared. 3 days later, the city became a dead city. Not even a single dog managed to escape. Not a single survivor was spared. The most outrageous thing was that after the killing, this man did not show mercy. He took a big vat filled with human blood and wrote a few words on the city wall. The heavens are merciful, I am merciful too. I am merciful in the name of enforcing justice. Slaughtering 100,000 people and claiming to be merciful in the name of enforcing justice. This was the biggest joke in the world. An ordinary expert would be tired after killing a few dozen people, but this Gensibe did not even bat an eyelid when he slaughtered 100,000 people. He even thought that he was doing a good deed and was merciful. Truly merciful. The entire Jianghu was in turmoil because of this matter. Countless experts swore to kill him, but his Xian Qi was too profound and almost no one could stop him. In the end, the palace master of the elusive world of immortals personally took action and defeated him. Then, he disappeared without a trace. It turned out that he had joined the elusive world of immortals and had taken on such an important role. Gensibe stroked his beard and sighed sorrowfully, that Chu Chi Hun has committed such a perverse act, we naturally cannot let him off. We are patrolling on behalf of the heavens, so we should enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and eliminate this calamity for the human world. A middle-aged man wearing a tall hat and a hemp robe spoke. His face was long and narrow, like a horse's face, but also like a donkey's face. His eyes were long and narrow, like 2 slits. Right now, these 2 slits were flashing with a bloodthirsty light. Lenglang looked at Gensibe and sneered, Old Gen, are you trying to be a gentleman again? Are you going to be merciful again? This person did not have any scruples when facing a peerless killer like Gensibe. It was obvious that Gensibe was on equal footing, but Gensibe was not angry at all. This person was the 3rd castellan of the Supreme Golden City, and also one of the leaders of the Blood Sea. Absolute heaven, absolute earth, and absolute world, Du Ju. His name was Du Ju. This name was very extreme, and the person with this name was also very extreme. He was exactly like his name. Not only was he ruthless to his enemies, he was even more ruthless to himself. It was said that in order to practice his swordsmanship, when he was tired and dissatisfied, he stabbed himself in the thigh. Until he was satisfied. If a person could be so ruthless to himself, one could imagine how he behaved in the world. Du Ju and Gensibe were the true pinnacle of the world, venerable ones. The compassionate venerable Gensibe, and the heartless venerable Du Ju. Whoever met Gensibe was bound to be merciful, whoever met Du Ju meant that he had reached the end of his life. A gentleman's virtue is shown in every word and action. How is this showing off? When it's time to be merciful, we will naturally enforce justice on behalf of heaven, and return peace to the world, Gensibe sighed and said solemnly. Along with his white hair and white beard, he looked solemn, as if he was holy and inviolable. But when everyone heard his words, all of them shuddered without exception. At this moment, the wind whistled in the sky, and a blurry shadow fell from the vast sky like a meteor. The speed was as fast as a meteor, like lightning. Du Ju's eyes flashed, and he suddenly shouted. His body did not move, but he floated up and went up to meet the attack. His palm was like a knife, and it was suffused with the color of blood. He did not even blink, and with a swoosh 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 swoosh, he struck more than 10 palm knives. Every knife hit its mark. Not a single knife missed its mark. The person who had fallen from the sky had been chopped into 17 or 18 pieces, scattering in all directions. Good skill. Venerable Du's palm knife is so handsome. This move is indeed extraordinary. Several people cheered in unison. At the same time, they were flattering him. However, Du had already fallen down. His face was flushed red, and it looked very ugly. He was a little angry, but also a little depressed. With a peng sound, a ball-like head smashed into the snow, then bounced up and rolled a few times. His face was facing the sky, and his eyes were wide open. He was as thin as a skeleton, and his face was full of wrinkles and vicissitudes. It's Ma Jiangming. Why did he run up to the sky? We've been here for quite a while, and he only came down now. How high did he jump? The people of the Supreme Golden City cried out in alarm. They were full of questions. This unfortunate person who had been dismembered and beheaded by their third city lord was actually an expert on their side. However, they did not dare to say anything else. They did not even dare to go over to take a look. Everyone had a strange expression on their faces. That was because Du's face had turned even darker. His donkey-like face seemed to have become even longer, and his body seemed to be emitting a murderous aura. He had elegantly leaped up and struck with all his strength. He had wanted to show off his might in front of everyone, but he had ended up chopping his own people into pieces. One could imagine how embarrassed Venerable Du was right now. Ha ha ha. Venerable Du's palm knife is so handsome. With a wave of his hand, he chopped this merciless man with a face full of vicissitudes of life into 17 or 18 pieces. This kind of skill is truly earth-shattering. Amazing. It is indeed amazing. Worthy of being called Venerable Du. Zhen Sibei smiled amiably. He spoke in a solemn tone, as if he was praising Venerable Du from the bottom of his heart. There was not a trace of ridicule in his tone. Du snorted coldly. Suddenly, he tilted his palm and raised it in front of his chest. A sharp palm knife went straight towards Zhen Sibei without making a sound. Zhen Sibei laughed loudly. He waved his sleeves, and with a schwa sound, Du's palm knife suddenly changed direction and cut deeply into the snow-covered ground. Zhen Sibei and Du were startled at the same time. They looked thoughtfully at the snow-covered ground under their feet. You guys, collect the corpses on the ground first. Isn't it too pitiful to leave these corpses lying in the wilderness? It's better to bury them in peace. Don't avoid the filth, the dead are the most important, Zhen Sibei casually instructed in a pleasant manner. His face was full of grief. A few people in white immediately came out from behind him, and quickly collected the corpses on the ground. Everyone, let's work together and clear all the snow in this slanting valley. Du and Lengleng ordered. The snow in the entire valley was as thick as a mountain. However, Du did not hesitate at all, and gave the order. It was very easy, as if he was saying, just sweep the dust here, it's so easy. 10 highly skilled martial artists from the Great Golden City stood up at the same time. Their bodies slowly expanded, and suddenly, they let out a muffled groan and struck out their palms at the same time. The violent gale turned into a huge shovel and swept up the thick layer of snow in a radius of several hundred feet. Then, another 40 to 50 people moved at the same time. With a loud bang, a huge layer of snow was lifted up and flew high up into the sky. Then, it fell outside of the slanting valley. Translators thoughts Unimon _ Unimon _ Unimon _ Unimon _ Unimon _ Unimon _ Such a large area of snow would weigh more than 10 million pounds. It was actually thrown out just like that. Black soil could be seen on the ground. There was a difference of 3 feet between the soil and the snow that everyone was standing on. Du and Zhen Sibei and Lengleng looked on, and continued to order expressionlessly, again. The second wave of cleanup was done by the elusive world of immortals. The third wave was naturally done by the illusory ocean of blood. It must be said that the group of supreme martial artists were very confident, and their strength was very strong. They had only rotated once, and a large area of the slanting valley had already been cleared. It was obviously an almost impossible task, but a lot of it had been completed in a short period of time. With such efficiency, it would not be difficult for them to clean up this place, and it would not take too long. The loud rumbling sounds of the mountains collapsing and the earth cracking were incessant. It was the sound of the large chunks of snow being thrown out. It seemed as if the whole earth was shaking. With their venerable level spiritual senses, Du Ju and Jin Sibei could faintly sense that there was definitely something special beneath the layer of snow. Otherwise, they would never believe that a mere Chu Chi Hun could kill 7 experts in one fell swoop and even cause a supreme martial artist to flee in a sorry state with serious injuries. If it was the Venerable Mei, this kind of result would still be reasonable. But Chu Chi Hun, what virtue or ability did he have? Even if the 8 experts were to kill each other, Chu Chi Hun would not be able to reach such a level. The conclusion was impossible. Zhen Sibei looked at the movements in front of him, and without turning his head, he called out, "Bai Wu Xian. Come here." Bai Wu Xian's heart was wrapped in a thick white cloth, but the bone-piercing pain was still tormenting him, causing him to grit his teeth from time to time. His bones had almost been pierced through by a sword. The fact that he was still able to stand here was already a feat of steel. Hearing Bai Wu Xian's words, he hurried over. He asked respectfully, "What instructions does second master have for me?" Towards this Lord Jin Sibei, no one had ever dared to call him second palace master. Everyone addressed him as second master, because this second master's temper was much more violent than the lord's. When the lord was angry, he would at most be locked up or given some punishment. But when the second master was angry, then mercy would descend. "Tell me everything that happened in detail. Don't leave out anything. Even if it's inconceivable, you have to tell me everything." Zhen Sibei raised his eyebrows and said in a heavy tone. Chapter 626. At this time, Bai Wu Xian's heart was in so much pain that it felt like it was about to split open. Being able to stand up and reply was already a difficult feat, but facing the questioning of this true grandpa, he did not dare to be negligent. Left with no choice, he could only explain everything in detail once more. He did not conceal anything, no matter how big or small. Even now, Bai Wu Xian's anger towards Ma Jiangming and the Ruan brothers had not dissipated. Naturally, he would speak the truth. If not for those 3 bastards suddenly fighting amongst themselves, would this daddy's head have been slashed open like that? Just a hair's breadth away from splitting my brain. My heavens! That's going to take my life. Even though Ma Jiangming's head and Ruan Yang's corpse had already been placed to the side, Bai Wu Xian's anger was still not appeased, and he almost wanted to kick them again. As they listened to Bai Wu Xian's story, the faces of Zhen Sibei, Du Ju, and Zi Jingheng all darkened. Towards the 3 of them suddenly acting like rats in a nest, the 3 of them were extremely confused. No matter how they looked at it, the 3 of them should not have acted so rashly. "Inspect the corpse carefully," Zhen Sibei and Leng Leng ordered. The 3 of them walked over to the corpse and inspected it carefully. Du Ju was extremely ruthless. With a schwa sound, he directly stripped Ruan Yang's corpse clean. Then, he pieced Ma Jiangming's corpse back together, and it was actually extremely complete. Second brother Ruan's body clearly has many needle marks all over his neck, thighs, buttocks, back. There's a total of 21 times. Ma Jiangming is an expert in flying needles. Could it be that this was done by Ma Jiangming? Furthermore, there's a pool of blood at second brother Ruan's crotch. It's from his back. He should have been injured there. The location of the injury is too strange, and it's hard to determine what it was caused by. From the blood flow, it's very likely that it was a hidden needle weapon. But after searching the surroundings, we only found a few needles, far less than the location of the injury. Furthermore, there is no trace of blood on these needles. This is extremely strange. Xi Jinghong naturally wanted to find an excuse for his men, but the more he spoke, the stranger his expression became. In the end, he decided to just shut his mouth. What would it take to plot against a superior supreme expert's backyard? Even if he racked his brains, he wouldn't be able to come up with an answer to this question. It couldn't be that the second son of the Ruan clan would just stick up his butt and let himself be blown up, right? That was a little too ridiculous. One couldn't help but admire Ma Jiangming's methods. As expected of the soul-chasing shadowless needle. How domineering. Du Ju's face darkened, but he didn't say a word. He continued to examine it carefully, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot. There's no need to look any further. Ma Jiangming must have ambushed them from behind, toying with them. The two of them couldn't bear the humiliation, and retaliated in anger. The real life and death battle should have started after the second son of the Ruan clan was struck in his back. Such a great humiliation naturally turned into anger, and the three of them fought to the death. As for the needle marks and no steel needles, I think it's because Ma Jiangming had only used ice needles at the start. Zhen Sibei snorted and gave his conclusion. His conclusion was basically the same as the truth. It could be seen that this person's reasoning ability was very good. The only mistake he had made was that he had pinned the blame on Ma Jiangming for the person who had used the ice needles. Xi Jinghong and Du Ju were also thinking the same thing. So, they couldn't help but nod in agreement. Ma Jiangming was known as the soul-chasing shadowless needle. So, it was reasonable for him to be able to do this. However, Ma Jiangming's injuries were even stranger. The real cause of his death wasn't a sword wound. Instead, it was a continuous kick to the lower part of his body. Then, someone continued to beat him until his 5 viscera and 6 bowels were smashed to pieces. Then, someone mercilessly kicked him several dozen times in the same place, sending him flying high into the sky. Kicking a person to death, and then continuously kicking the corpse high up into the air. Only when we arrived did it finally land. Du Ju sighed heavily, furrowing his brows as he looked at the pieces of Ma Jiangming's corpse that he had dismembered. This person's methods are extremely cruel and terrifying. His grandmother, he's even more ruthless than me. He's an out-and-out perverted murderer. Otherwise, Du Ju, with our strength, killing Ma Jiangming wouldn't take much effort. But, do you really have the ability to continuously kick him over 100 zhang into the sky? Zhen Sibei Lenglang looked at him and said mockingly, at the very least, I don't think I have the ability to do it. If you can, then I must congratulate you. It turns out that you've already broken through to the venerable realm. Du Ju instantly understood Zhen Sibei's meaning. That's right, kicking him over 100 zhang. Then, the person who did it would have to follow Ma Jiangming's corpse all the way up. Does such a high-level movement technique really exist in this world? There was no need to breathe, no need to breathe, no need to borrow strength. To kick him in the same place as he was in the air, Du Ju sucked in a deep breath. Suddenly, he felt a chill run down his spine. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. That's not impossible. The Eagle King and the Crane King of the Tian Fa Forest can also do it. Zhen Sibei's eyes flashed. He didn't say anything. This was something he hadn't thought of. His previous judgment was completely based on Xian techniques. This matter couldn't be explained by humans. If it was done by a flying-type beast king, then everything was reasonable. At the very least, it could be explained. Zhen Sibei twirled his beard and muttered, could it be that Tian Fa also participated in this battle? At this time, Ma Jiangming's corpse isn't complete. There's still a very important object missing. Du Ju took a final look and discovered that something was wrong. Even if he was kicked away, there should still be traces. Even if he was kicked into a pulp, he should still be hanging there. How come that thing is gone? Isn't this the same as dying without an intact corpse? Death is a big deal. Let's bury his corpse in one piece. Someone help us look for it. 3-star king level master Xiao Weiqing stumbled over. Third city lord, that, Ma Jiangming, he didn't have anything down there in the first place. Du Zhu's face turned pale. Turning his head, he spat on the ground. Fucking bad luck. Just as they were fighting until their eyes were red, and they were about to become one with the sword, Chu Chihuan suddenly appeared. Bai Wu Xian saw that the big shots had finished inspecting the corpse and continued. Stop. Jin Sibei waved his hand and thought for a moment. Then, he called over 5 people and had them stand in their positions. Continue speaking. Was this the position you guys were standing in? Yes. Just like that, in that instant, I suddenly felt a sense of danger. I charged forward, but I was still heavily injured. Only then did I realize that the 2 companions behind me were already dead. At the same time, the other 2 were also killed. One was stabbed in the back of the neck, and the other was slashed from the shoulder all the way to the abdomen. Wait. Du Zhu waved his hand and interrupted him. Going over to inspect the injuries of the corpses, he said, Hermitage was ambushed first, and then the Supreme Golden City. In that case, this doesn't make sense. That's right. Zhen Sibei nodded his head and fell into deep thought. Du Zhu leapt up soundlessly, disappearing into the snow. Following that, he suddenly appeared beside the 5 people, his hand in a sword stance. Then, he swept his sword horizontally, stabbing towards the back of the head of the person standing at Bai Wu Xian's position. Then, with a schwa sound, he appeared behind the 2 people from the Supreme Golden City. Pausing, he shook his head and said, It's impossible. The murderer is definitely not one person. There must be at least 2 people. That's right, there must be at least 2 people acting at the same time for this to happen. Furthermore, these 2 people must have the strength of a top-notch assassin like Chu Chihuan. This kind of meticulous grasp of timing is extremely rare. Although our people are all paying attention to the battle, they still have the vigilance of a supreme martial artist. Any slight movement of the grass in the wind would be enough to deal with it. Thus, the 2 assassins who acted this time are both top-notch experts. If it was just Chu Chihuan alone, there's no way he would be able to do this. Jinsibei Lengleng looked at Bai Wu Xian and said, Bai Wu Xian, your report is not true. You're so afraid of death that you didn't even dare to turn your head and ran away. Yet, you're still trying to mislead us with false information. What is the meaning of this? Bai Wu Xian's face turned pale with fright, and his lean face was filled with panic. Second Master, what do you mean by this? I, Bai Wu Xian, have already been in the Hermitage for 100 years. Could it be that Second Master still doesn't know what kind of person I am? There's no need to mention the past. Right now, I only know that you're afraid of death, running away when you're in danger, not caring about your own brothers and comrades. Furthermore, you're making things up out of nothing, spouting nonsense to mislead us. Bai Wu Xian, someone like you truly deserves to die. Zhen Sibei looked at him coldly, the killing intent in his eyes growing thicker and thicker. Bai Wu Xian, this seat shall bestow you with mercy today. If you're willing to take your own life, you can leave your corpse intact. But if this seat takes action personally, the result will be hard to say. Bai Wu Xian retreated 2 steps with a schwa sound, his face filled with grief and indignation. Second Master, if you want to incriminate me, there's no need to worry about excuses. At that time, Bai Wu Xian didn't want to run away. But if I didn't run with all my strength, even if I hesitated for the slightest bit, I would still have died under the enemy's sword. Second Master, where did your information come from? I, Bai Wu Xian, would rather destroy my own reputation to bring back information and show my sincerity towards the Immortal Palace. How could I possibly intentionally mislead you? Unfortunately, there was no meaning in any explanation. A benevolent smile hung on Zhen Sibei's face as he floated up like a white cloud. His palms slammed down as he said coldly, no matter how glib your tongue is, you won't be able to escape death today. If you don't die, how can you atone for your sins? Are you really not willing to take your own life? Bai Wu Xian parried with all his might, his expression filled with grief and indignation. With a schwa sound, his sword flew out of its sheath. He shouted in grief, Zhenxi Bei, I will never give in to your perverse ways. Let's see if your mercy can really reach me. You still dare to use your sword against me? Overestimating your own abilities. I've already given you a chance, but you're the one who gave it up. Zhenxi Bei laughed savagely as he clasped his hands together and roared, Trap! An inexplicable force burst forth from his palms, vast and boundless, as if connecting the heavens and the earth. Bai Wu Xian suddenly found that he couldn't move a single muscle. In fact, he couldn't even blink his eyes. This was the power of heaven and earth that only venerable experts could comprehend. Power of heaven and earth, become my cage. This was already a tiny bit of the power of heaven and earth. This kind of power, only Mei Xuyan had ever used it before. Chapter 627. Bai Wu Xian stood there in a daze, trying his best to struggle, but to no avail. His eyes were filled with despair as he watched Zhenxi Bei's hand land on his forehead. With a pa sound, his brains burst out, and his entire head was smashed into pieces like a watermelon. His death was too horrible to look at. Everyone was silent out of fear. Du Zhu looked on coldly from the side, a dark expression on his face. A superior supreme, and Zhenxi Bei had actually killed him without the slightest bit of mercy. Bai Wu Xian's corpse slowly fell to the ground. At this time, the crowd outside suddenly exclaimed in shock. Zhenxi Bei and Du Zhu turned around, only to see a huge hole the size of a house on the left side of the mountain. It was pitch black, and it was hard to tell how deep it was. There's indeed something strange here. Zhenxi Bei stroked his beard, a bright light flashing in his eyes. Come, let's go take a look. Underground, Chu Chihuan looked at Jun Moxie as if he was looking at a ghost. You've won. Supreme Chu said, sighing in disappointment. I can't compare to you, and I'm ashamed of my inferiority. You are the true king of the world of assassins. Fully deserving of the title. The title of Supreme Assassin no longer belongs to me. Chu Chihuan's voice was filled with disappointment, shame, admiration, and praise. Chu Chihuan watched everything unfold, and he knew clearly that he had lost, and he had lost convincingly. On the surface, it seemed like he had killed 2 great masters from the Supreme Golden City and 1 superior master from the illusory Blood Sea. Jun Mo Xia had also killed 3 of them with a sneak attack and injured 1. As for Ma Jiangming, he didn't even count. On the surface, Jun Moxie only had the upper hand, and the gap was very small. But Chu Chihuan knew very well that he had lost completely. Because all of this had been planned by Jun Moxie. All the opportunities had appeared because of Jun Moxie's plan. Otherwise, this wouldn't have been the result. Chu Chi-hun was good at making use of opportunities and seizing them. Any small opportunity would be grasped by him. Using his elusive movements, it would be a fatal blow. As an assassin, this seemed to be enough. He had always been proud of this and had always thought that this was enough. But today, in front of him, this young man had used reality to teach him a lesson. As an assassin, a top assassin, not only must he know how to make use of opportunities, but he must also use all means to create opportunities when there are no opportunities. If Chu Chihuan were to face these 8 experts by himself, he would only be able to kill one of them with a sneak attack. Even if he were to be surrounded by so many strong enemies, it would be difficult for him to escape unscathed. Because he would have to face the joint attack of the other 7 experts. However, Jun Moxie had cleverly created an opportunity to annihilate all 8 of them in one fell swoop. This method was close to a miracle. The gap between them was completely incomparable. Taking advantage of opportunities is passive. But creating opportunities is active. Only by creating opportunities, one can grasp the best opportunity. Just waiting for others to be careless was like waiting for a rabbit to come to them. Chu Chihuan had every reason to believe that even if Ma Jiangming and the Ruan brothers had not had a dispute, Jun Moxie would have used other methods to attract their attention, or used other contradictions to incite them to fight. He could definitely do it. However, he had never thought about this aspect. He had never considered it at all. Not only did he not do it, he did not even think about it. This was the gap. A gap that was hard to catch up. Thank you for letting me win. Jun Moxie smiled and did not bother with pleasantries. Because he could clearly feel that Chu Chihuan was very lacking in this aspect. A king of assassins, a supreme assassin, was not just capable of killing people. There was also a lot of knowledge in this. If there was an opportunity, he must make use of it to its fullest potential. Even if there was no opportunity, he must create an opportunity for himself. This was the most complete concept of an assassin. Such a concept was also suitable for any other industry, be it people of all religions or even officialdom, official career, marketing, or business. All of them were the same. Everyone had an opportunity. When there was no opportunity, the opportunity created by oneself would be more suitable for oneself. So, when there was no path in front of us, we must pave a path for ourselves if we want to move forward. The more there was no path, the more likely it was that we could create a golden path. When I get out of here alive, I will announce this news to the world. The supreme assassin is no longer Chu Chihuan. Chu Chihuan's voice was low, but it was from the bottom of his heart. My skills are not as good as others. If I still call myself the supreme assassin, it will be a disgrace to me. I do not need the recognition of the world, so you don't have to do this. Whether the world recognizes me or not, what does it have to do with me? Jun Mo Xia raised his head and smiled arrogantly. He said disdainfully, I only need your acknowledgement. That's enough. As Jun Moxie spoke, he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He thought with some relief, I, the evil monarch, did not lose our face after all. Thinking of this, his heart turned sour. What does the world have to do with me? You have really won my heart. Chu Chihuan was startled, and then he suddenly laughed. Then he looked at the three of them and said in a deep voice, until now, I still haven't asked for your names. The three of them were stunned when they heard this. They had thought that Chu Chihuan had already known their identities. They didn't expect that he really didn't know. This was Chu Chihuan's strange temper. He had never made friends with anyone in his life, so he would never ask for someone's name. Before this, the only thing he remembered was the name of his assassination target. Chu Chihuan had always thought that there was no one in the world who was worthy of him asking for his name, and no one was qualified to be his friend. No one was qualified to be his friend. It was the first time for this killer to ask for someone's name. It was the first time for a typical young lady to get on a bridal sedan chair. My name is Jun Moxie, this is my mother, Dongfang Wenxin, this is my wife, Mei, I won't tell you her full name. Jun Moxie beamed with delight, taking advantage of them again. You are Jun Moxie. You are Dongfang Wenxin. Chu Chihuan was shocked, and suddenly asked, are you the widow of General Jun Wuhui? The Dongfang family's Miss Wenxin? Yes, I am. Dongfang Wenxin's eyes turned red, but she forced herself to be calm and said, I have lived for so long, but I have brought shame to my late husband's name. Please don't laugh at me, Senior Chu. Suddenly hearing her husband's name from someone else's mouth, that familiar feeling suddenly made Dongfang Wenxin's heart sour, and she couldn't control herself. What are you talking about, madam? Chu Chihuan's face became serious. Although General Jun is my junior, he is a hero, courageous, and chivalrous. I am a cold-blooded killer, and I have never been convinced by anyone, but Jun Wuhui is the only exception. Madam's love for her husband is earth-shattering, and she is willing to sleep with heaven and earth for her husband, which should be admired by the world. It also makes those women who are greedy for wealth and enjoyment feel ashamed. The heroic husband and wife complement each other, so how can they be ashamed? Chu Chihuan let out a long sigh, and said, that year, I had the honor of meeting General Jun, because someone offered me 30 million taels of silver to assassinate Jun Wuhui. After I investigated, the more I admired him, and finally, I gave up on the deal. That was also the first and only time in my life that I gave up on my own initiative. He laughed bitterly. I, Chu Chihuan, have always been a cold-blooded butcher, and I never cared whether the other party was a loyal minister or a virtuous wife. As long as someone could afford it, I would never be soft-hearted. But that time, I was really convinced by Jun Wuhui. I once sneaked into the army camp and watched him for 3 days, before I left. On behalf of my late husband, I thank Mr. Chu for his mercy. Dongfang Wenxin stood up and bowed. Who was the person who asked you to kill my father? Can you give me a name? Jun Moxie frowned, but he was concerned about this question. This matter had been picked out one by one, but the more he investigated, the more complicated it became. The buyer that day was the imperial tutor of the Yutang Empire, Fei Mengchen. Chu Chihuan hesitated for a while. I did not accept his request, so he is not my client. So, it is not a big deal for me to tell you. Although he said that, Jun Moxie understood that it was a taboo for an assassin to tell his client. Although Chu Chihuan said so, he had already owed him a big favor. Chu Chihuan, I was thinking about your movement skills. There is something wrong with your movement skills. Mei Xueyan looked at Chu Chihuan quietly, and her eyebrows were slightly furrowed. She looked at Chu Chihuan suspiciously, and her eyes were filled with hatred. Do you know about the war for seizing the heavens? Venerable Mei indeed has a good eye. How could Chu Chihuan not know who this beauty was? When she fought against more than 30 experts alone, Chu Chihuan had seen it with his own eyes, so he did not dare to neglect her. My teacher was fortunate enough to fight on the pillar of heaven's peak, and fell down the cliff with heavy injuries. Luckily, he did not die, but his xian cultivation was half crippled, and his body was also crippled. After a lot of hard work, he took a long time to recover. Finally, he accepted me as his disciple by chance. A pained smile appeared on Chu Chihuan's face. He lowered his head and said slowly, although my teacher's xian cultivation could not advance any further, he knew how to take care of his health, so his lifespan was not in danger. Although he could no longer practice xian cultivation, he had developed an interest in the strange race's movement skills. Chu Chihuan sighed deeply and said, my teacher once said that the strange race's biggest threat to us is their strange movement skills. Because they can hide themselves at any time, and it is hard to see them with the naked eye. Countless experts with higher cultivation than them have suffered from their strange movement skills. My teacher was the same. So my teacher spent the last few hundred years of his life trying to find a way to break that strange movement skill. Your teacher is a wise man, I wonder if he has found a way to deal with it. Mei Xuyan's eyes lit up, and she asked hurriedly. Now the monthly votes have been pulled apart by tens of votes. Brothers, sisters, can you still fight? Can you still fight? Can you still fight? I have not fallen yet. I am still fighting. Still exploding. I hope you can use your monthly votes to tell me. Chapter 628. Unsolvable. Chu Chihuan sighed and said, my teacher had pondered for over 100 years, but he still could not solve it. Although he was unable to solve it, it was not without any gains. My teacher studied the strange movement techniques of the strange races, and combined them with many of the Xian continent's movement techniques. Finally, he came up with a unique set of mental cultivation techniques. This set of mental cultivation techniques, combined with movement techniques, actually has the same effect as the strange race's stealth assassination technique. And what I'm using now is precisely this set of movement techniques. Venerable Mei said that it has something to do with the war for seizing the heavens, and he is not wrong. Because this set of movement techniques originated from the strange race's stealth assassination technique. So that's how it is. Mei Xueyan let out a long breath. and her expression calmed down as she said, "Your teacher is really a respectable senior. He is crippled but not crippled, and is still able to benefit his descendants." Just as the few of them were chatting excitedly, a bright light suddenly flashed above their heads. About 100 zhang above ground, a pile of snow that was tens of zhang high had been lifted up, revealing a man-made cave entrance. The four of them were shocked, and Chu Chihuan even stood up with a schwa sound. Don't be anxious, they won't be able to come down. If they dare to come down, that would be even more fun. June Moxie snorted and said, I didn't think that there would be a few people with brains this time. What a surprise. But, do you think that this is all? June Dashao laughed, and a milky white mist suddenly rose from his body. He shouted, dive. Under the shocked gazes of Chu Chihuan and Dongfang, the ground beneath their feet suddenly dropped downwards. This time, it was different from the previous time. The last time Jun Mo Xia had fallen, he had only wanted to find a place to hide. But now, he was discovered even though he was more than 100 feet underground. Jun Mo Xia was a little angry. Therefore, this time, it was a long fall of several hundred feet. For a moment, even Chu Chihuan felt like he was dreaming. Mei Xuan had already carried Dongfang Wenxin up when she was falling, so that her feet were off the ground. Chu Chihuan had thought that the hole the four of them were hiding in was actually prepared by Jun Moxie long ago. Only now did he realize that it was not the case at all. It was a last-minute creation. When he thought of how Jun Moxie could sneak in as he pleased and had no limits to his terrifying methods, this shocking fact caused this supreme assassin's mind to be thrown into chaos. There was actually such a miraculous technique in this world. Great divine ability. I'm afraid the people who have come this time are not to be underestimated. We might not be able to deal with them easily. I'm afraid there will be a huge battle soon. Jun Moxie controlled the momentum of his descent and said to Mei Xuyan cautiously, there are two especially powerful auras above us. Even compared to you, they are not much weaker. But no matter what, don't make a move. Protecting Mother is your only mission. Leave everything else to us. Those are venerable realm cultivators. Can you two handle them? Mei Xuyan stared at him and said, don't force yourself. If I make a move, I'm sure we will have a higher chance of winning. Don't worry. In this environment, even if the golden deities of the great all-embracing heaven come down, they will all die. Jun Moxie said fiercely. That's right. Speaking of sneak attacks, those who are better than us in this world are probably still in their mother's wombs. Chu Chihuan laughed and said confidently. During this period of time, Jun Moxie had helped him to recuperate his body. This allowed his xian qi and body to recover to their best condition. This was the time when he was bursting with confidence. In the dark underground cave, the two king of assassins were ready to strike. But looking down from above, there was only endless darkness. There was no movement at all. What should we do now? Zi Jingheng stuck his head out to look at this dark and bottomless cave. He could only feel that there was a faint ghostly aura coming out of it, and he felt a little apprehensive. She felt a little nervous and suggested, why don't we just fill up this big cave and suffocate them to death? That will save us a lot of trouble. Hee, faction leader Z, how do you know that there are no other forks in this cave? Or maybe there is a whole other cave. Or maybe, this is an exit to the outside of the slanting valley. Fill it up. This suggestion of yours really makes this old man smile. Zhen Xiaibei laughed as he looked at Zi Jingheng and said in an amiable manner. Zi Jingheng's face turned red, and he was so embarrassed that he couldn't say anything. Send people down to check. Send 2 groups at the same time. The first group of 3 people will form a triangular formation. The second group of 5 people will form a circle. The 2 groups of people will be separated by 5 zhang. They will guard each other from top to bottom. This way, we can ensure our safety. Du Ju ordered Lenglang. Zhen Sibei smiled amiably and said, that's right. City Lord Du's suggestion is very good. This way, we can avoid a lot of casualties. This time, for the sake of mutual understanding, every group of people should come from the same place. Otherwise, we won't be able to bear another tragedy like Ma Jiangming and the Ruan brothers. Palace Lord Zi, don't you think so? Zi Jinghong said indifferently, Second Master's words are reasonable. Since that's the case, I ask Second Master to deploy the people. Zi Jinghong was well aware of Du Zhu and Jin Sibei's intentions. These two old geezers wanted the people of the illusory ocean of blood to be the first batch of cannon fodder. Therefore, Zi Jinghong wisely withdrew from the decision-making group and threw the problem back to Jin Sibei. You're the one giving the orders. You can't not send your own people, right? How can you convince the people if you still send people from other sects? Very well. This old man has lived for a few more years here. In that case, this old man will be thick-skinned. A sharp light flashed in Jin Sibei's eyes. He laughed and said, the people of the illusory ocean of blood live in the fog of the blood sea all year round. So, they should be more familiar with this kind of dark environment. I suggest that the illusory ocean of blood send out 3 people first. What do you think? Brother Du, do you have a different opinion? Du Zhu rolled his eyes and said with a fake smile, that's right, Brother Zhen's words make a lot of sense. The Blood Sea is indeed the most suitable for the first wave of search. As for the second wave, it would be a grand and majestic formation. In this aspect, our supreme golden city is far inferior to the elusive world of immortals. As for the second wave, let the people of the immortal palace do it. I'll wait here and wait for the good news. Naturally, if there's a need for the third wave, our great golden city will not shirk. Zi Jinghong secretly cursed in her heart, shameless. This is too shameless. These two old geezers schemed and schemed. They didn't care about their reputation at all. They wanted the people of the illusory ocean of blood to be cannon fodder first. It seemed that the two Holy Lands had already given birth to the idea of preserving their own strength after the recent losses. After all, the losses of any of the 3 clans were not small. Almost 100 people from the 3 Holy Lands were stuffed into this bottomless pit. Zhen Sibei was also extremely unhappy at this moment. He hadn't expected that Du Zhu would take advantage of the situation to make a fool out of him. He had originally planned to stay behind to take advantage of the situation, but he was still pushed into the second wave. Although he wasn't the most direct cannon fodder, there was still quite a bit of risk involved. Both of them were cursing in their hearts. Damn it, with the 2 of us probing, why would there be a need for the third wave? Du Zhu's words of duty-bound were simply a bunch of high-sounding bullsh*t. Wasn't he cursing all of us to die? Go down. Zhen Sibei ordered in a low voice, if there's an accident, give a long whistle to warn. Zi Jinghong nodded and pointed out 3 superior supreme experts from the illusory blood sea to step forward. The 3 of them had always been inseparable and had excellent teamwork. Moreover, their cultivation level was considered to be among the top in the illusory blood sea. Even if it was disadvantageous for them to go down, they wouldn't be killed without a chance to fight back. At least they could hold on until the Hermitage people came down. Stop every 10 feet and leave a mark. Make the stairway to heaven. Du Zhu added another order. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the 3 illusory blood sea experts leaped up at the same time, forming an equilateral triangle in mid-air and suddenly landed. The position where they landed was close to the wall of the cave. The long swords in one hand shone brightly and the other hand was placed horizontally in front of their chest, accumulating a mysterious palm force, ready to attack or push against the wall at any time. Behind them, 5 white-robed men from the Hermitage stood up and followed closely behind, jumping down. This time, all the people who went down were superior supreme experts. The 8 of them maintained the same movement, rising and falling at the same time. At the same time, they stopped their bodies on the wall of the cave and slowly descended at almost the same frequency. At the bottom of the cave, Yeah, the opponents are so powerful, we can't fight them recklessly. Mei Shuyan frowned and said anxiously, let's leave first. As the saying goes, revenge is a dish best served cold. I heard what was said just now. The people who spoke were the second in command of the Hermitage, the compassionate Venerable Zhenxibei, and the third in command of the Supreme Golden City, the heartless Venerable Du Ju. These two people are at the same level as me. Moreover, there are more than 100 experts. Yeah, for the sake of your mother, bear with it for a moment and leave. I know you must have other ways to escape. Jun Moxie was stunned. He looked at the 8 people who were slowly descending, gritted his teeth and said, all right. You guys follow me closely. Jun Moxie waved his hand, and a dark hole suddenly appeared at the side of the cave. The 4 of them quickly went in, and the hole closed instantly. There was no sound, no trace. But when Jun Moxie went in last, a ruthless look flashed in his eyes. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the 3 experts from the Blood Sea reached the bottom of the cave. What surprised them was that there was no water at such a deep place, and it was very dry. Also, there was no one down there. Looking up, the gray sky was only the size of a teacup. Roughly estimating, this cave was at least 500 feet deep. Wait, no one. How could there be no one? Where did they go? The few of them carefully knocked on the walls of the cave. It was all solid ground, and there were even some hard rocks. Not to mention humans, even a mouse would find it hard to go through. This was really strange. The 3 of them looked at each other. And just at this time, Jun Moxie, who had already burrowed into the ground, suddenly turned around. A cruel light flashed in his eyes, and he clasped his hands together, assuming a strange posture. Suddenly, his body emitted a blurry yellow light. The power of Earth. Chapter 629. Third Watch. While the 3 from Illusory Ocean of Blood were in a daze, the 5 from Hermitage came down one after another. One of them couldn't help but ask, why isn't anyone here? Have you searched the surroundings? Obviously, he was also very surprised. No one. How strange. Why is there no one? An expert of the Blood Sea scratched his head in puzzlement. It seemed that he had not scratched his head since he had mastered the mysterious art. But now, he had picked up his childhood habit again. The 8 of them knocked and checked, and came to the same conclusion. This was a straight hollow, surrounded by solid walls made of thick soil and rocks. There was absolutely no other fork in the cave. It was even more impossible for the ground to be under his feet. That solid feeling clearly told everyone this fact. What a waste of time. The whole way down 500 feet, I was scared out of my wits. But in the end, I didn't find anyone. One of them laughed at himself and said, since there is no one, then we should hurry up. It's so dark here. Why do I feel like there's something wrong everywhere? Since there was no one around, what was the point of staying here? This place was at least 500 feet underground. It was not a good place to be. Just as they were at a loss, one of them suddenly jumped up and shouted, everyone, look. Oh my God. The other 7 didn't expect that this guy would be so ungentlemanly as to call out to the heavens. They couldn't help but laugh. Just as they were about to mock him, the 7 of them suddenly cried out in alarm, damn it, why is there so much water suddenly? It turned out that water was gushing out from the ground like a spring. It was cool and refreshing. In the blink of an eye, the water had already reached their ankles. Just now, everyone had clearly checked that the dryness of the ground was already at its limit. It was not much different from the dryness of the brick kiln walls. But, why would there be water suddenly? However, now was not a good time to feel cool, nor was it a good time to think about the root of the problem. Water coming out of the bottom of the cave meant that, this cave, was about to collapse. Moreover, this was 500 feet below the surface of the ground. Once it collapsed, the 8 of them were shocked at the same time. They quickly jumped up and climbed up the stone wall. They climbed up as if they were flying. With the strength of these 8 people, they had a good chance of escaping if there were no accidents. The water level on the ground couldn't rise so fast. But suddenly, the wall above them started to shake violently for no reason. The 8 of them felt darkness in front of them. They cried out in unison, "This is bad." Large chunks of soil came crashing down in an instant, and there were also huge rocks in the middle. This was 500 feet underground. The 8 of them were scared out of their wits. They tried their best to rush up, but with a loud bang, they couldn't see anything in the darkness. The entire wall of the cave collapsed at the same time. A total of 8 superior supreme experts were actually buried alive in the cave. Above, Zhenxi Bei and the rest were waiting for the good news. However, as they waited, they suddenly felt a tremor beneath their feet. Du Zhu was the first to react. He leaped up and the rest jumped out of the cave. At the same time, the cave collapsed with a loud crash. Mud and stones from all directions were squeezed into the middle at the same time. In an instant, this square hole was completely blocked. Zhenxi Bei and Zi Jinghong cursed at the same time, "Fuck. This is actually a trap." At this moment, Zhenxi Bei's benevolent face was completely gone. He became ferocious and terrifying, as if he wanted to eat someone. He cursed in exasperation, "Fucking Chu Chihuan. Your whole family is a bunch of bastards. How could you come up with such a dirty trick? Fuck your ancestors." A benevolent and amiable old man suddenly started cursing like a shrew. What kind of feeling was that? How magnificent would it be? I don't know, but the experts of the 3 holy lands must have felt it in their hearts. All of them were as silent as cicadas in winter as they watched this white-bearded, compassionate, and merciful Supreme Master stomping his feet and cursing incessantly. He was cursing even more viciously than the fat woman who had her pants ripped open when she tripped in front of my house on a hot day. Zhenxi Bei couldn't help but be angry and shocked. Just as a precaution, he had sent out 5 superior supreme experts who were almost at the peak of their strength. Those were all top-notch experts who were only a step away from becoming venerable ones. If they were really lost here, the consequences would be unimaginable. So serious that even he couldn't bear it. And this plan was suggested by him. He had vetoed Zi Jinghong's correct suggestion. Zi Jinghong was also cursing with a red face. His heart was filled with grief, but there was also a faint sense of pleasure. "Fuck your grandmother. Who asked you to set me up again? Look at you now. I only managed to bury 3 of my men, but you lost 5 of your men in one go. 2 more than my blood sea, and all of them were peak experts. Fuck you. If not for my men down there, I would have secretly gone to one side to enjoy myself." Du Zhu grinned, his facial muscles twitching. There was a hint of schadenfreude in his eyes, but he said sympathetically, "So this place was actually a trap. I really didn't expect, the 2 of you, my condolences. After all, the dead can't be brought back to life. The Xian continent is full of talents, and it's still possible to gather a few more experts." Du Zhu's mischievous words made Zhenxi Bei and Zi Jinghong so angry that 1 Buddha was born, 2 Buddhas ascended to heaven, and 3 Buddhas nirvana. Was this still considered human speech? They were only buried alive. They weren't dead yet, and you're already asking for their condolences? Wasn't this a curse? Men! Dig up this hole as fast as you can. Quickly. Zhenxi Bei's face was filled with anger. He placed his hands on his hips and shouted fiercely. On the other side, Zi Jinghong hurriedly gave the same order. Underground, in a certain direction, Jun Moxie closed his eyes and clasped his hands together. Suddenly, he spread his arms outwards, and circles of yellow light rippled out from his body. In an instant, it merged with the surrounding soil, and continued to spread out in a direction that was difficult to see with the naked eye. On Jun Moxie's body, circles of yellow light continued to emit, rapidly and endlessly. "I want to make this place collapse. Finally, Jun Moxie's face paled. He opened his eyes, and a bloody light flashed in his eyes. He roared loudly, and an infinite amount of yellow light burst out. His body fell backwards in exhaustion, and he said hurriedly, "Quickly leave. Leave this place, the faster the better." Chu Chihuan grabbed his body, and rushed forward like a sharp sword through a dark tunnel. Mei Xuan followed closely behind, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. On the surface, just as the three Holy Lands were about to start digging to rescue people, an expert had just lifted up a large piece of soil. Suddenly, everyone felt the ground beneath their feet tremble. The ground beneath their feet shook merrily as if it was dancing. This time, the tremor was much stronger than the previous one. Even the stones on the ground were bounced high up into the air. Everyone felt that they couldn't even stand properly. Du Ju raised his head to look, and his face changed greatly. With a schwa sound, his face turned pale. He shouted, "Fuck! This place is going to collapse. How can there be a landslide? Everyone, quickly leave." With a whoosh sound, he moved like an arrow leaving the bow. The experts of the Supreme Golden City shouted and followed him, "Don't go. We haven't rescued the people yet, no one is allowed to." Zhen Sibei was so angry that he almost vomited blood. But, he couldn't help but stare blankly, and immediately shut his mouth. The two mountain peaks on both sides of the slanting valley shook at the same time. First, the snow on the mountain peaks rumbled and fell down with the momentum of 10,000 horses galloping. But, it wasn't over yet. The mountain peaks continued to shake, and suddenly, like a drunkard, they fell down. The two steep mountain peaks collapsed with a loud bang, one to the left and one to the right, smashing down towards the center of the valley. Countless thousands of kilogram boulders rolled down from the top of the mountain with a mighty momentum. It was as if a 10,000 zhang dike had suddenly been breached. Moreover, from the top to the bottom, it directly formed the idiom, Mount Tai crushing down. Zhen Sibei's eyes widened as he roared, "Quickly run." Even his voice had changed pitch. Nearly 100 experts scattered like birds and beasts, but after all, they weren't as quick as Du Ju. In the end, many people were drowned in screaming and screaming. They could only use their own Xian Qi to resist. The rumbling sounds of the earth cracking and the mountain collapsing continued for the time it took to drink a cup of tea. At this time, looking at the valley again, it was already the same as the two mountain peaks on both sides. It was a flat land. Originally, it was called a valley because the two mountain peaks were sandwiched by a ravine. But now, it had become a flat land. In an instant, the blue sea turned into mulberry fields. This was how it was. The experts of the three Holy Lands were all panting heavily as they stood on the newly excavated plains. Their eyes were wide open as they stared at the inconceivable scene before them. They could only feel chills running down their backs as cold sweat trickled down their backs. All of their faces were pale, and their faces were completely drained of blood. Who could resist such a divine power of heaven and earth? Below, groans could be heard from time to time, and huge boulders were slowly being pushed away. It had to be said that the bones of these superior supreme experts were really tough. Such a large-scale landslide actually didn't smash them to death. But, each and every one of them was also injured. Their bodies and faces were covered in bruises and bruises. This was not the kind of place for marriage. There was complete silence. Suddenly, save them all. You bunch of bastards. Are you all fucking blockheads? Zhen Sibei hammered his chest and roared in anger. If this daddy doesn't speak, are you all going to just watch them struggle for their lives? A bunch of living trash. Fuck your grannies. Just as he finished scolding, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood in anger. His eyes were blood red. After a full 7 days, this place could finally be considered tidied up. A total of 152 people from the three Holy Lands had gathered here. Of the 17 people who were injured by the landslide, 2 had broken legs, and 3 had broken arms. The rest were also injured, and luckily, no one died. It was all thanks to this bunch of old bones that were really tough. Hundreds of years of Xian Qi, they were really not to be trifled with. Chapter 630. In the end, these people were forced to drink muddy water to maintain their breathing. After all, there was still oxygen in the water. Even the purest Xian Qi cultivation couldn't last for 7 days and 7 nights without breathing. When they were dug out, 7 of them were left with their last breaths. They had fallen into a deep coma, and each of them had multiple fractures on their bodies. They didn't even have the strength to move their eyes. The last person had been dead for a long time. His body had been bitten into pieces, and there wasn't even a single piece of flesh left. Everyone lowered their heads in misery when they saw this tragic scene. It was obvious that there wasn't anything to eat underground. So, the unlucky guy who had died first had become food for everyone else. After a few days, these people had finally recovered a little. The first thing they did after waking up was to vomit non-stop. Moreover, they had committed a mental illness from then on. Eating the flesh and blood of their own brothers. What kind of feeling is this? This kind of horrifying feeling was enough to make these people remember it until the end of time. Jun Moxie had exhausted his spiritual power to trigger the landslide. After he came out, he had practically relied on Chu Chihuan to carry him all the way. But even so, Chu Chihuan was still very happy. When he saw that place suddenly collapse, it was as comfortable as jumping into a frozen river on a hot day. When he saw 2 mountain peaks collapse at the same time, Chu Chihuan even forgot to be shocked. At that moment, he only wanted to sing. It was too cool, too fucking cool. Who asked you to chase after me indiscriminately and try to kill me? Now, I'm suffering from retribution, right? Just based on this point alone, not to mention carrying Jun Mo for a short period of time, even if he had to carry Jun Mo for a lifetime, he would be willing. More than 10 days passed, and the road could be said to be extremely peaceful. The city walls of Tianxiang City could be faintly seen in front of them. Jun Moxie's spiritual power had already been restored. But, he was still clinging to Chu Chihuan's back, and wouldn't come down no matter what. Damn it! Once I come down, this guy will turn around and run away. Who can I look for? However, Chu Chihuan was still Chu Chihuan. Even though Jun Moxie had shown great sincerity, he still only stayed at the Jun residence for 2 days, and then left. He was like a lonely wolf who would never have too much time to rest. Perhaps, those days of wandering and those thrilling moments were what Chu Chihuan was really pursuing. I'm originally a rootless duckweed. I'm used to this kind of life, and I don't want to have roots. We are fated to meet today, but we may not be able to meet again in the future. Before leaving, Chu Chihuan had a long talk with Jun Moxie and said, "We are all real killers, and we know our hearts. My identity will always be a killer, and this will never change. I like these days, and I like the feeling of wandering everywhere. I go. I like it. So, I'm leaving. I'm very happy that I have the fate to meet you, the king of killers. But, it's a pity that your identity means that you can't be a real killer. So, although your strength can be said to be the king of our profession, and no one has the right to object, you have to remember your identity. You are not a killer. I am. So, I'm very sorry for my departure. I know what you want. I have a disciple, and I will arrange for him to find you later. I believe you should have an impression of him, because he tried to assassinate you before. I hope you can forget about it and treat him well. Although I'm just a killer, I'm also a teacher. As for the 3 Holy Lands pursuit, I don't really care. Because I'm being hunted every day. It's just that the starting point of this pursuit is slightly higher. Maybe this time, it will be difficult for me to escape the 3 Holy Lands pursuit. But, hiding and running away is not my, Chu Chihuan's, style. I'm the king of killers. Even if I have to die, I should be killed by others, and not die peacefully of old age. I'd rather be stained with blood than live an ignoble life. This is my pride, and I believe you understand. If I'm lucky enough to survive, and feel tired, I think I'll come here to rest for a while, and then I'll start my journey again." These were Chu Chihuan's words. Jun Moxie understood and admired him, and even envied him. Crossing the world with a sword, repaying kindness and enmity, brushing the clothes, sweeping the world with a sword. Traveling thousands of miles, lonely sword against the morning wind, dreaming of the ocean laughing, waking up with blood-red clothes. Gratitude and enmity must be unsheathed. Life and death have nothing to do with feelings. Tender heart lingers on the sea, loyal heart illuminates the sea. I'll be free and unfettered, heaven and earth leave no trace, the cold moon follows the lonely shadow, withered branches sweep the cold wind. This was Jun Moxie's dream life. But in this life, his identity meant that this dream could never be realized. And what Chu Chihuan said was right. Although he was the king of killers, he could not appear as a killer. Killer, this long-lost title, only belonged to his previous life. In this life, he was Jun Moxie. The battle with Chu Chihuan and winning the glory of the king of killers had already proved that he was the evil monarch. But it was just a proof, although it was enough. So, Jun Moxie did not ask Chu Chihuan to stay. Or, from another point of view, Chu Chihuan's wandering in the Jianghu seemed to have continued Jun Moxie's dream of being a killer in the Jianghu. Being able to have someone who had the same dream as him, and live like this, could be considered as fulfilling his dream. Before Chu Chihuan left, Jun Moxie gave him 3 elixirs: Vitality Linkage Elixir, Vitality Gathering Elixir, and Heaven Vitality Elixir. Then, he gave Chu Chihuan 2 bottles of elixirs that he had carefully refined. One bottle was for internal injuries, which could recover even the most serious internal injuries in a short time. Even if it was a disease that could not be cured by medicine like qi deviation, it could alleviate and regulate it. The other bottle was for knife wounds, which had a magical effect on external injuries, and could almost bring the dead back to life. After knowing the uses of these 3 elixirs and the 2 bottles of medicine for internal and external injuries, Chu Chihuan did not speak for a long time. There was no joy on his face. Instead, it was full of disappointment, which was actually a kind of powerless struggle. I, Chu Chihuan, have never owed anyone a favor in my life. This has always been my proudest point, and also the biggest foundation of my straightforwardness. But, your gift this time is too heavy for me to bear. But, I know that it is difficult for me to refuse, and I don't want to refuse. I owe you a lot. I owe you a life for the Blizzard Tavern, I owe you a favor for the ambush in the Slanting Valley, I owe you a favor for the 1,000-mile escape, and now, I owe you so many elixirs. I am very unhappy. If there is a chance, I will repay this favor. But, the debt of a favor is the most difficult to repay. I am afraid that I will never be able to repay it in this lifetime. So, I never owe you anything. Chu Chihuan left. He floated away in a carefree and unrestrained manner. He left without any worries, and didn't even look back. Resolute and unrestrained. He only left a few words. After saying this, he turned around and left, and didn't look back again. The day that you wield your sword in the snowstorm will be the day that I draw my sword in the Silver City. These 3 bottles of elixirs, I will take them as my reward. Although you may not think so, but, I have never owed anyone anything, and I don't want to owe you anything. Jun Moxie was silent. After Chu Chihuan left, Mei Shuiyan also bade farewell to Jun Moxie. She wanted to cooperate with the Snake King to return to Tian Fa and prepare for the upcoming battle. Similarly, when Mei Shuiyan returned again, it would be the time for everyone to lead the army to Blizzard's Silver City. If there were no accidents, the 3 Holy Lands would also intervene in the Battle of Blizzard's Silver City. So, when Mei Shuiyan returned this time, she was going to mobilize the army. She left with Jun Moxie's many elixirs. When she returned again, it would be a brand new Tian Fa. Tian Fa's glory days were just around the corner. No matter who obstructed my path of vengeance, no matter who it is, I will crush them without mercy. With absolute strength, I will destroy them in one battle. This time, I will wield my sword in the Silver City, not only for vengeance, but also for intimidation. Because Jun Moxie not only wanted to kill the Shao family, he also wanted to collapse the snowy peak of the sword. He must create a shocking sensation, to shock the entire Xian continent. Revenge for the Jun family. Revenge for my father. Revenge for my mother. Revenge for my uncle. Revenge for my brother. More importantly, I will use this opportunity to remove the shackles of the oath of the Dongfang family. With the Shao family as a stepping stone, I will announce to the world that the Jun family is rising. The rise of Jun Moxie. No one can stop me, absolutely no one can stop me. At that moment, the path of glory of the otherworldly evil monarch will truly begin. When Mei Shuyan left, her eyes were full of reluctance. Finally, after a gentle hug, she floated away. The Qian Sun Serpent Queen's eyes were red, as if she had been crying. When she left, she did not even look at Jun Moxie. No one knew if it was because she did not dare to look, or if it was something else. The return of Dongfang Wenxin brought great joy to the Jun family. When he saw his brother-in-law, Jun Wui, whose face was full of shame, Dongfang Wenxin said, "Third brother, you don't need to be ashamed, and you don't need to blame yourself too much. Not to mention that you are not at fault in this matter. Even if you are at fault, so what? Brothers are one. If this happened to me and Wu Hui, then the innocent one who would suffer would be you. And we would also be sad. You only need to think of the whole thing from your brother's point of view, and you will understand what your brother means. You will always be our most beloved little brother. If you really feel sorry for your brother, then live with dignity, and live proudly for your brother." Jun Wui held back his tears and went back with red eyes. This proud and unyielding blood general knelt in front of Jun Wuhui and Jun Wumeng's memorial tablets for the whole night, his head covered with frost. But now, the knot in his heart was finally undone. Dongfang Wenxin was also very satisfied with the two daughters-in-law, Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi. Guan Qinghan's strength and her temperament, which was like a plum blossom in the snow, made Dongfang Wenxin admire her greatly. He especially admired Guan Qinghan's persistence, stubbornness, and aloofness, which made Dongfang Wenxin feel like he saw himself in the past. Also, Guan Qinghan's music and calligraphy were extraordinary, and she had a lot in common with Dongfang Wenxin. So when the two of them were together, they complemented each other. Chapter 631. After Chu Chihuan left, Jun Moxie waited for Chu Chihuan's disciple. He was looking forward to it. Ever since he came to this world, he had only encountered one assassination attempt, and it was that lightning-like strike outside the imperial city. Since then, there had been no news or traces of that assassin. He had completely disappeared, as if he did not exist in this world. Even if Jun Moxie wanted to investigate, he had no way of finding out. However, there had always been a doubt in his heart. Only now did he know that he was actually Chu Chihuan's disciple. Thinking of that fellow's extremely fast movement and sword skills, Jun Moxie had a feeling that if this fellow was trained well, his future achievements would definitely be higher than Chu Chihuan's. So Jun Moxie was really looking forward to it. In the short term, there was nothing else to do. Right now, the main goal was to train the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer. Under Jun Moxie's relentless use of medicinal pills and spirit medicines, and under the torturous training of Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun, the strength of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer soared like a rocket. 300 people continuously jumped levels, and many of them had already reached the peak of Earth Xian. Just one more step, and they would be able to take the 3 great medicinal pills of Jun Moxie and soar again. At that time, the strength of the Jun family could only be described as terrifying. Everything was ready. Originally, using this kind of extremely cruel method to increase one's strength and push one's potential to the limit was not the right way. In essence, it was basically an act of drinking poison to quench one's thirst. The members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer might be able to greatly increase their strength in a short period of time, but there was no room for further growth. In fact, because of this extreme training, their lifespan would be greatly depleted, and they could die at any time. However, Jun Moxie had an endless supply of prescriptions and heavenly treasures in his hands, so they didn't have to worry about such things at all. With enough elixirs as a foundation, and with some recuperation, it would only take a few days at most to replenish all the vitality they had lost, and they could even grow a lot. As a result, all the members gradually got used to this extremely cruel training cycle. Other than the harsh training of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer, the Jun family was very peaceful and even warm. In the following days, Jun Moxie tried his best to relax and enjoy this peaceful life to the fullest. He was reluctant to part with these unforgettable days. Because once war broke out once more, then such peaceful days would probably be difficult to find in the future. All the information came flying like snowflakes, conveying the same message: they had not found the location of the Blood Sword Hall. The Blood Sword Hall, the most terrifying assassin organization of the Xian continent, seemed to have disappeared from this world in a single night, without a trace. All the information about them could no longer be found. Not even the slightest trace could be found. For a terrorist organization with such an illustrious reputation, this phenomenon was extremely unreasonable. However, Jun Moxie didn't think that there was anything unreasonable about it. The Jun family had risen so powerfully, and the enemy was also a very bold person. How could they not cut off their losses? If they were still able to find traces of the Blood Sword Hall, then that would be really unreasonable. In these days, Jun Moxie often climbed up the tower, and at night, he would stare in the direction of the Imperial Palace for a long time. Jun Moxie was very clear that the man in the Imperial Palace definitely knew everything that had happened here. There were many times when Jun Moxie almost wanted to directly rush into the Imperial Palace, capture that man, and then use hypnosis to force him to tell the truth. However, Jun Moxie wasn't willing to do that. It wasn't that he couldn't, but, if he were to obtain the truth like this, then it would be too easy for him. The price of the Jun family's hatred was his cheap life. How could it be repaid? In this world, there are many things that are more painful than death, and I look forward to using the rest of my life to properly taste them. An excessively calm day was often the calm before the storm. On this day, Jun Moxie slowly walked through the pure white snow into the small courtyard where Guanqing Han lived alone. The white snow was flawless, and it looked like it was wrapped in silver. Jun Moxie was dressed in a light blue robe, and the snow-white fox fur collar contrasted with his handsome face, red lips, white teeth, sword-like eyebrows, and starry eyes. His figure was tall and slender, and his handsomeness was pressing. He was the standard of a handsome and elegant young man. Naturally, it would be even more perfect if there wasn't a touch of evil between his eyebrows. Jun Dashao's footsteps were leisurely as he floated over, as if he was riding the wind and treading on the moon, his feet unstained by the dust. There were a total of 4 women sitting in a pavilion in the courtyard, and they couldn't help but stare at him as he walked in. Dongfang Wen Xian's eyes flashed with pride. "This is my son, what an outstanding character." Dugu Xiaoli jumped up with a "wow," and said with a charming smile, "Brother Mo Xia, you are so handsome." Han Yen Meng turned her head, and her eyes also lit up, and she said in an old-fashioned manner, "Sister-in-law, this son of yours is not bad-looking." Her sister, Han Yen Yao, and Jun Wui were in love with each other, so naturally, her status rose, and she called Dongfang Wen Xian's sister-in-law, just like Jun Wui. However, it was really ridiculous for a 16 or 17-year-old girl to speak in such a tone of seniority. Only Guanqing Han had her head lowered, and her brows furrowed, as if she was thinking hard about something. She held a pen in her hand, and was constantly drawing and writing. It seemed as if all her attention was focused on the white paper in front of her, and she didn't notice Jun Moxie's arrival at all. Jun Moxie walked over to take a look, and saw that the white paper was filled with symbols. It turned out that Guan Qinghan was composing a song. "What song is this?" June Moxie asked. "Sister Qinghan has been spending a lot of time with Auntie recently, and she often hears about Uncle and Auntie's affairs. She was so touched by their affection that she vowed to compose a song to commemorate their sincere friendship. I just finished it, and I played it once just now. It sounds very touching, but I still feel that something is wrong, so I changed it again." Dugu Xiaoyi smiled mischievously. The little girl was dressed in a light yellow robe, a small leather cotton-padded jacket, and a pair of small boots. There were 2 snow-white round pom-poms on them. She looked like the most delicate doll, and was very lovable. "Oh, let me have a look." June Moxie walked over, and stared at it. "You know music?" The 4 women looked at him in surprise, and their faces were full of surprise. "I only know a thing or two, it's not very elegant." June Moxie touched his nose, and said modestly. Looking at Guan Qinghan's music score, he tried to hum it, and shook his head, and said, "No, no, your song is too sad. Father and mother are chivalrous, and heroes and beauties complement each other. Although they are separated from each other, this true love will forever exist in the world, and no obstacles can stop it. It's a story of a generation, and it's not just a story of those silly men and women. Your music score may be able to make people cry, but it doesn't show the most beautiful true love, and it's difficult to arouse the greatest recognition of everyone. This can be said to be the biggest failure." Guan Qinghan said in a daze, "I also thought of this reason, and it's because I found this problem just now that I started to change it. But no matter how I changed, I always felt that I couldn't grasp the essence, and even felt that the more I changed, the worse it got." June Moxie looked up at the sky, and thought for a while, and said, "Let me try." As he said that, he put away Guan Qinghan's piece of white paper, and laid down another one. He took the pen from Guan Qinghan's hand, and stood in front of the table, and was deep in thought, like an old monk in meditation. Dongfang Wenxin couldn't help but laugh, thinking that her son was playing a trick, and looked at June Moxie with great interest. Dugu Xiaoyi and Han Yanmeng also looked like they were watching a good show, waiting for June Moxie to make a fool of himself, so that they could tease and humiliate him. But only Guan Qinghan knew that June Moxie knew music, and his attainment in it was quite high, and she was the only one who looked serious and expectant. After a long while, June Moxie let out a long breath, and suddenly moved the pen like it was flying. One by one, the musical symbols that belonged to this world appeared on the white paper, but what they brought was a melody from another world. There was no hesitation, and it was done in one go. Guan Qinghan took the song, and tried to hum a few lines, and suddenly, her eyes lit up, and she opened her eyes wide in disbelief, thinking carefully again. After what seemed like a long time, Guan Qinghan slowly took out a jade flute from her sleeves, and put it to her lips. Her beautiful eyes stared at June Moxie's music score, and her mouth opened slightly, and the sound of the flute rang out. The sound of the flute was especially deep, and it was full of deep emotion. The song was full of the interpretation of true love, and also a strong sense of melancholy and helplessness, as well as the endless yearning for such a sincere love. This song was like a dream. A dream about love that everyone yearned for the most, an ethereal yet real dream. June Moxie silently closed his eyes. His right hand gently tapped the beat in response to the tune Guan Qinghan was playing. It seemed as if he was enjoying it. In fact, it seemed as if he was immersed in this once familiar music. Dongfang, Wen Xian, and the other 2 suddenly heard such a beautiful music, and they were surprised at first, but then they couldn't help but immerse themselves in it. Such a beautiful and touching song had never appeared in this world. Even the most beautiful music had its end. When the song ended, Guan Qinghan stood there with the jade flute in her hand, and looked at the composer June Moxie in disbelief. Although she knew that he was familiar with music, she still couldn't believe it, and even more couldn't believe that he could create such a heavenly sound so casually. "It's really beautiful." Dugu Xiaoyi opened her eyes, and said with some nostalgia, "I've never heard such a soulful song before." If it could be sung with lyrics, it would definitely be very nice. Jun Mosia smiled faintly. He then picked up the brush, and wrote the lyrics of the song under the score. He said, "This song, let's call it Song of No Regrets." He sighed in his heart, in this world, there is no 3 plays of Plum Blossom after all. The 4 surrounded him, and slowly recited. There are infatuated people in the world of mortals, don't be too infatuated if not for the bone-chilling cold, the fragrance of plum blossoms, what is love in the world, what is love in the world, how many stories in the world, the most ecstatic song of no regrets. There is one thing that I would like to ask of you. I don't want to see any comments or insults about other authors in my book review section. I hope you can calm down. Only writers know the hardships and tiredness of being a writer, and how much effort they put in. Everyone works hard to make a living, and no one has it easy. I hope you can understand. I hope that the readers of Sia Jun can be as proud as our Sia Jun Moxie. I hope that one day when you comment on us, you will say, the readers of Sia Jun are a group of people with good qualities. That will be my proudest thing. Chapter 632. Worldly Affairs, Infatuation. Dugu Xiaoyi sang the lyrics along with the music score. On the other side, Guan Qinghan's flute sounded again. Along with Dugu Xiaoyi's singing, the flute's gentle sound complemented each other. When the song ended, everyone could still feel the lingering sound. It was not an exaggeration to say that the melody lingered in the air for 3 days. What is love in the world? It makes people live and die for each other. Dongfang Wenxin suddenly shed tears and murmured, "What is love? What is love? Is love something that tortures people?" Jun Moxie sighed and recited slowly, "What is love in the world? It makes people live and die for each other. 2 travelers from all over the world, old wings fly back to winter and summer, joy is fun, parting is bitter, and there are infatuated children. You should have a saying, 10,000 miles of clouds, 1,000 mountains in the evening snow, only shadow goes to whom?" When Dongfang Wen Xian heard this poem, it was as if she had fallen into a trance. She chewed on every word, pondering over the meaning within. She stood there in a daze, and suddenly, her eyes filled with tears, slowly falling to the ground. She turned around and ran back to her room, only to hear a sorrowful cry. Juning Ying's words, 10,000 li of clouds, 1,000 mountains of snow at dusk, to whom does the shadow go? No regrets. No regrets. You want me to be alone. How am I going to face the wind and rain of the world? Moxia, do you think Auntie, will she? Guan Qinghan asked Jun Moxie quietly. Her tone was full of worry and reproach. Obviously, she blamed Jun Moxie for making Dongfang Wenxin sad. Jun Moxia sighed deeply and said, "Mother has been suppressing her grief and putting on a smile during this period of time. Forcing herself to smile is simply too tiring. If she keeps holding it in for too long, it will really cause problems. You know, emotions are like a torrent, it's better to let it flow than to block it. Might as well let her touch her heart and let it all out. As long as she can cry, it will be much easier after that." Guan Qinghan, Dugu Xiaoyi, and Han Yen Meng nodded in realization. Amidst the silence, a beautiful flute sound rose once again. It spread in all directions leisurely, and it did not stop. It was the song, No Regrets, asking the world, what is love? In a small courtyard separated by a wall, another infatuated person, Yiguhan, stood under a flowering tree. He looked even more haggard than before. He let the snow on the flowering tree tremble and slide down his head and neck, but he seemed to not feel it at all. He only listened to the song with infatuation. His empty left sleeve fluttered in the cold wind. Yiguhan's face was bitter. His eyes were deep and filled with pain. His expression was bleak and lonely. He murmured, "Ask the world, what is love? Xiao Xiao, are you okay?" When Jun Moxie left, Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi were studying the song. But Han Yen Meng followed him out. Jun Moxie, nephew Mo Xia, when do you plan to go to Blizzard's Silver City? Han Yen Meng pouted and looked at him. Blizzard's Silver City? What for? Jun Moxie was stunned. That place is far away and cold. I have no interest in going there. When he heard nephew Mo Xia, Jun Dashao felt that it was a little harsh. But his mother and third uncle had already made the decision. He had no room to argue. How could he let this little girl bully him? You. Han Yen Meng was angry. What about the Xiao family? Don't you want to take revenge? Why wouldn't I want to? But the Xiao family is also the enemy of your Han family, and it's the kind of life and death enmity where only one of them dies. In terms of urgency, I'm definitely not the first to bear the brunt. Jun Mo Xia spread out his hands and said, it's not like you don't know that the Xiao family is very powerful, and their influence is even more enormous. So, it's only natural that they leave it to you, who are equally strong, to deal with them. So, we'll wait for you to start fighting, and then we'll sneak over and bring your sister out to reunite with my third uncle. As for other matters, I'm really powerless. But our Blizzard Silver City will be completely destroyed. The little girl was so anxious that she almost cried. She bit her lips and looked at Jun Moxie. Then, she stamped her feet and said, how can you be so heartless? I'm heartless. How did you come to that conclusion? Jun Moxie felt wronged and said, the so-called heartless is built on the basis of an intimate relationship, right? I don't seem to have much of a relationship with your Han family, right? Even from my third uncle's point of view, I should indeed go. But when I think about it carefully, I'm really unwilling. Let's not talk about anything else. Even if my father, second uncle, and my two brothers died that day, none of them had anything to do with your Blizzard's Silver City. Even if the Xiao family did it, your Han family wouldn't have known about it, right? At least you would have connived with it. From what standpoint are you saying that I'm heartless? It was indeed wrong of us to have connived with the Xiao family. But, shouldn't we be united against a common enemy? You're saying that you're not reconciled. Han Yen Meng's eyes lit up. You have conditions? If you have conditions, then tell me. How will I know if you don't tell me? How will I help you if I don't know? Tell me your conditions, and I'll know. Jun Moxie's face turned bitter. Elder sister, don't beat around the bush. My head is already 3 times bigger than before. If it gets any bigger, it'll explode. Then, Jun Dashao said with some reluctance, I think you've already planned it. I'll go to the Blizzard Silver City, and kill the Xiao family. Then, I'll help my third uncle get a wife. Then, I'll help your Blizzard Silver City get rid of any future troubles. Third uncle and third aunt will be happy from then on. The Blizzard Silver City will flourish, and there won't be any internal troubles. Everyone will be happy. Is this your plan? You're an elder. You're really astute and farsighted. But, what about me? You'll get everything. What will I get in the end? I don't think I'll get anything. My third uncle will at least get a beauty. But, I won't even get a single hair. Would you be willing to suffer such a loss? Then, how about I introduce a few sisters to you in the Blizzard Silver City? But, whether you can succeed or not depends on your ability. That should be fine, right? The little girl bit her lips and said in a resolute manner. No. What kind of condition is this? My third uncle married a princess of the Blizzard Silver City. You want to use a few maids to get rid of me? Isn't the gap too big? Jun Moxie said indignantly, no matter what, their status should be about the same, right? My third uncle married a princess, and I'm marrying a maid. Isn't this too degrading for me? About the same status? Han Yen Meng opened her big round eyes and said in a confused manner, but, there's no more, how come there's no more? Jun Moxie frowned and pretended to be unhappy. Then, He said patiently, there's at least one more, there's another one. Who? The little girl frowned and thought hard for a while. She looked down at her toes and thought for a while. Then, she looked up at the sky and thought for a while. She looked very pained and confused. Then, she stretched out her 10 fingers, and counted them one by one. After a long while, she finally said with certainty, there's really no more. There's absolutely no more. I've counted several times. There's really no more. Are you sure? June Moxie looked at her with some dissatisfaction. You can't lie to me. This concerns the future of the Blizzard Silver City. I'm not lying. I'll be a puppy if I lie to you. There's really no more. The little girl pointed to the sky and swore, I swear. If there's really a suitable person, if there's really a suitable one. You'll what? Don't tell me that you'll tie her up and send her to me? June Moxie said in a very persuasive manner. That's right. If there's really such a person, I'll tie her up and send her to you. I'll go all out for the future of the Blizzard Silver City. But, what if there's really no more? The little Lolita spoke in a righteous manner. She had a triumphant expression on her face as she looked at June Emosia proudly. In fact, it seemed as if her evil plan had succeeded. Then, she chuckled and said, if you really don't have them, then you should quickly go to the Silver City and help us kill those traitors. Good. It's a deal. If there's a suitable person in the Blizzard Silver City with the same status as your sister, then tie her up and send her to me to be my concubine. If there isn't, then I'll just treat it as a good deed. I'll help the Blizzard Silver City destroy the Shao family. Moreover, I won't mention any additional conditions. June Moxie said seriously, it's a deal. We'll clap our hands as a vow. We can't go back on our words. Do you dare to make this bet? Why wouldn't I dare? The little girl laughed happily. Speaking of the Blizzard Silver City's affairs, do you think you're clearer than me? If I say there's no more, then there's no more. Clap our hands as a vow. Hurry up. She was even more delighted in her heart. Uncle Moo said that this June Moxie was very cunning. But, it seems that he's just a fool now. Not to mention that there's no suitable candidate, even if there is one, it'll be up to us. If we say there's no more, then there's no more. I'll go back and tell Uncle Moo about this good news. The little girl was afraid that June Moxie would go back on his words. So, she couldn't wait to stretch out her smooth and tender palm in front of June Moxie. She shook it repeatedly. It was obvious that she wanted to seal this big deal. She was trying hard to remind herself to be calm and steady. But, she couldn't control herself. Her heart was full of pride. Her big clear eyes had almost turned into crescent moons. Waha! I've gotten a big bargain this time. You'll be my concubine as long as there's a suitable candidate. You won't regret it. June Moxie obviously didn't trust her. This made Han Yen Meng very angry. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws. She roared in a low voice, I mean what I say. I'll be your concubine if there's one. I'll bear witness to this matter. I can't be wrong. Aya, you're such a big man. Hurry up and clap our hands as a vow. Clap our hands as a vow. No, I still have to think about it. June Moxie had just stretched out his hand when he suddenly retracted it. He looked at Han Yen Meng suspiciously. Why does it seem like a trap? Why do I smell a conspiracy? Moreover, wouldn't I suffer a great loss if you don't keep your word? The little girl jumped 3 feet high. She had gone mad. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws in anger. Do you think I'll go back on my word? Me? Humph. I'm telling you that I, Han Yen Meng, always keep my word. I've never gone back on my word. Humph, I swear on the Silver Blizzard City's supreme reputation to show my sincerity. If I don't keep my word, and I can't fulfill my promise, then let me This aunt will take off my clothes and walk around the Tianxiang city. It's a deal. June Moxie's eyes lit up. Chapter 633. Pa. 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 June Moxie had just raised his hand when Han Yen Meng quickly slapped his palm 3 times. She was laughing happily like a cat that had stolen a fish. She was winking and looking very pleased with herself. You're finished, the little girl announced with a cackle. I'm telling you now, you're going to lose. How can that be? June Moxie looked at the little girl who had sold herself out and was still helping others earn money. He said confidently, how can I lose? You won't lose. Ha, the person you want doesn't exist. Today, little Aunt Han will teach your nephew Mo Xia a lesson. This matter doesn't belong to you. If I say there's no such person, then there's no such person. Do you understand now? The little loli looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. How can there be no such person? There must be a suitable candidate. How can there be no such person? Because there are 2 princesses of the Silver Blizzard City, right? June Mo Xia crossed his arms and laughed sinisterly. Apart from your sister, isn't there also you, little Aunt Han? Did I see wrongly? Are you a young master of the Silver Blizzard City? Not a woman. You're not a woman. What did you say? Me? I. Han Yen Meng retorted reflexively. Suddenly, she was tongue-tied. She covered her mouth with her hand. Her complacent smile froze on her face. The next moment, it was replaced by a panic-stricken expression. She had actually forgotten to count herself. Perhaps it should be said that Han Yen Meng had never considered that she was one of the candidates. Miss Han, you must know who the suitable candidate I was talking about is? Then, please hurry up and tie up the woman that I want. In other words, my concubine, and send her to my room. June Moxie said seriously, this is a matter that concerns the reputation of the Silver Blizzard City. I hope you can do it as soon as possible. I believe that you can do it. Because you, Miss Han, have always kept your promises. Han Yen Meng's face darkened. Her fingers trembled, and the expression in her eyes fluctuated. Suddenly, she remembered to blush. She rolled her eyes and pondered for a long time. Then, she suddenly clutched her stomach, and said with a pained expression, Aya, why does my stomach suddenly hurt? I have to go back and rest. Aya, why does it hurt so much? Then, she bent her waist, and walked away dejectedly. Miss Han, it doesn't matter if your stomach hurts, but don't forget about my concubine. Big brother is still waiting. Wah the binding method. June Moxie loudly reminded her from behind, but Han Yen Meng turned a deaf ear to him. She slipped away like a wisp of smoke and disappeared without a trace. Little guy, who asked you to act like an elder in front of me every day? Is it so easy to be this young master's elder? I'm not going to teach you a lesson. You really don't know what restraint is, and what it means to quit while you're ahead. June Moxie's heart felt very comfortable. There was no need to mention that feeling of pleasure. Now, let's see how this lass would face him. Ha, I've been suppressing my anger for a few days, and I can finally vent it out, ha. A burst of laughter rang out. Jun Wui flashed out from the side. He clutched his stomach, and laughed with a pained expression on his face. It was obvious that he had been suppressing his anger for a long time. As he laughed, he gave a thumbs up, Mo Xia. You're really amazing. You made this lass sell herself. Third uncle really has to give it to you today. You're too overbearing. June Moxie touched his nose, and said with a mischievous smile, Third uncle, isn't this the only way? This lass has been acting like an elder in front of me for the past few days. She keeps calling me nephew Mo Xie. What do you think I should do? This time, I reckon she'll be well behaved for a while. I'm afraid she won't be well behaved for a while. Jun Wui laughed loudly. I reckon this lass won't be able to raise her head in front of you from now on. She won't even dare to take a picture with you. Mos, I say. Don't tell me you've really fallen for this lass. No way. Jun Moxie shook his head violently. Third uncle, please spare me. Don't randomly matchmake a couple, I already have quite a few. Humph. Jun Wui laughed meaningfully, and reminded him, you two are really not a good match. After all, there's a seniority gap between the two of you. How can you be considered a suitable candidate? Third Master Jun swaggered off after he finished speaking. I didn't say anything, and you're already planning for your sister-in-law. Besides, Yang Gua is married to her master. What's the difference in seniority? Jun Moxie muttered, and felt a little guilty. Suddenly, someone came to report, young master, someone is asking to see you. He said that his master asked him to come. Let him in. Jun Moxie perked up. He's finally here. This brat really gave me a fright that time. I want to take a closer look and see what kind of character he is. Young Master Jun, the person who appeared in front of Jun Moxie was a young man, at most 24 or 25 years old. Not only was he thin, but he was also not tall. According to Jun Moxie's judgment, this lad was at most 1.6 meters tall. But his whole body was unusually coordinated. What's your name? Did you assassinate me some time ago? Are you Chu Chihuan's disciple? Jun Moxie stared at the young man in front of him. The young man seemed a little reserved and a little dull, but his eyes were as rigid as the eyes of a dead fish, as if they could not move at all. Wherever he looked, it was as if he was looking at a dead object. Yes. The young man straightened his chest, and there was still no fluctuation in his eyes. My name is Leng Ao. Leng Ao, a very imposing name. Jun Moxie smiled faintly. Suddenly, his body leaned forward, and his eyes turned cold in an instant. Like a flash of lightning across the sky, an extremely overbearing aura mixed with a domineering murderous aura covered him with a boom, without any warning. The murderous aura surged like a raging tide, like countless swords wreaking havoc in the air. Several guards at the door only sensed a slight aura, and they sat on the ground in a daze, their faces instantly pale. Leng Ao's dead eyes flashed a sincere shock in an instant, and he was horrified. He tried his best to resist Jun Moxie's aura, trying to fight back, but found that everything was in vain. He had no room to resist. One moment, only one moment. His whole body, his whole soul had been swallowed up, and his whole body became cold. That time, who asked you to kill me? Jun Moxie asked word by word. Leng Ao raised his head stubbornly. Leng looked at him, but had no intention of speaking at all. He bit the tip of his tongue hard, hoping to keep the last trace of clarity. Blood inevitably flowed down from the corner of his mouth, but even so, Leng Ao found that he still could not guarantee that his mind was clear. He only felt that his consciousness was getting blurrier, as if he would fall into endless darkness at any time. Ha, you really have guts. Jun Moxie laughed, and the overwhelming murderous aura suddenly disappeared. You're indeed Chu Chihuan's disciple. You haven't learned anything else, but you've learned 100% of your tough bones. Leng Ao panted with difficulty and said slowly, you shouldn't have asked me. Although I'm here to seek refuge with you, I'm not here to seek refuge with you. Although I'm here to seek refuge with you, I have to come under the orders of my master. As an assassin, I will never reveal the name of my client. Life and death are not a big deal, but the rules must never be broken. I won't ask you again. Jun Moxie smiled Leng. When you tried to assassinate me, I had many enemies who wanted to kill me. But now, they are no longer worthy to be my opponent. It doesn't matter whether you know or not. But what I want is your obedience and loyalty in the future. Jun Moxie said solemnly, I can give you what you want but can't get. I can also give you everything that your master can't teach you. I can also make your cultivation advance by leaps and bounds. But, if you can't give me what I want, then even if you're Chu Chihuan's disciple, I don't want you. Do you understand? I understand. Leng Ao's face was sweating. The pressure that the young man in front of him brought to him was even greater than his master, Chu Chihuan. At the very least, Chu Chihuan could not emit such a terrifying murderous aura. As the successor of Chu Chihuan, Leng Ao was well aware of this. No wonder his master said, "Master is just a supreme killer." There's no doubt about this, but that's all. If you go there, you'll be able to see the Emperor of Killers. Could it be that the Emperor of Killers that his master mentioned was this young man in front of him? Very well. I'll give you 5 days. Within 5 days, you have to find Lu Yun Killer and Tian Can and Deke, then bring them to me. Jun Moxie said decisively, "If you can do it, I'll let you stay. And give you everything you want. That's what Chu Chihuan asked me to give you. But if you can't do it, you'd better continue your wandering in the pugilistic world." He stared into Leng Ao's eyes and said word by word, "Disciple of Chu Chihuan, can you do it?" "I can do it. I can definitely complete this mission." Leng Ao knew that this was a test given to him by the other party, but he was still provoked by Jun Moxie's words. "Can't do it? Wouldn't that be embarrassing his master? Your movement technique is very fast. And it's different from your master. Your master's movement technique is fast and ethereal, as fast as a dream, but you only pursue fast, pure speed. Why is that?" Jun Moxie looked at him and asked. "I don't know either. When my master picked me up and taught me mystic arts, he told me that my path of cultivation is only fast." Speaking of this, it was obvious that this killer named Leng Ao was also very puzzled. "Oh." Jun Mo Xia got up from his seat and placed his hand on the man's shoulder. Then, a wisp of his spiritual power started to circulate through the man's body. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he exclaimed, "It's the Peerless Blade. So that's how it is. Old Chu has the wisdom to recognize people and teach in accordance with their aptitude. It's amazing." Leng Ao was stunned. He did not understand what Jun Dashao meant at all. Jun Moxie raised his head and exhaled. He waved his hand and said, "Go. Remember, within 5 days." "Yes." Leng Ao turned around and strode out. The following doesn't count. Today, I noticed that there are people chatting in the group. They're talking about the monthly tickets. Everyone is working hard for Feng Ling's hope, and they're all doing their best to give suggestions. Some brothers and sisters don't have enough subscriptions to get monthly tickets, but they're subscribing to books to get enough monthly tickets to vote. Reading this, my heart is trembling. I'm very excited, very touched, and very ashamed. It turns out that everyone has sacrificed so much for me. What did Feng Ling do to deserve everyone's sacrifice? Everyone came to read books to relax and pass the time, but because of me, they increased the pressure and sacrificed too much. Even many friends have given monthly tickets through tips. I'm very ashamed. I'm just doing what an author should do. Here, I express my gratitude to everyone. Perhaps a gentle thank you didn't mean anything. But it is my gratitude to all of you. Seeing such a situation, my heart is very warm. Yes. No matter what the outcome of this month is, I will feel that I have won. I have won everyone's recognition. This will be my most precious treasure. What a good reader, what a good brother and sister. I can't bear to leave all of you, I really can't. I think, I will go on with all of you, in the future, with all of you, I will not be lonely. I will not feel wronged. Chapter 634. Jun Moxie looked at his back, and the question that had been entangled in his mind for a long time was finally revealed. Why was his speed so fast that he did not even have the time to dodge at that time? With the cultivation of an Earth Xian, his speed could surpass the peak of Tian Xian. So that was it. Unparalleled blade. Or it should be called unparalleled toughness. This guy actually had 2 ligaments in his legs that supported his running speed. Extraordinary talent. This kind of natural strange physique was destined to be much faster than the average person. If he could be specially trained, his speed would undoubtedly reach a jaw-dropping level. No wonder Chu Chihuan chose speed for him, pure speed training. However, although Chu Chihuan's choice was correct, and the training was quite good, his training method was still lacking. Therefore, even if Leng Ao's achievements were not low, there was still a limit. At most, he could reach the same height as Chu Chihuan. Leng Ao's future strength would at most be at the level of Chu Chihuan, and most likely would not be as good as his master. But with Jun Moxie, with this kind of physique, Jun Moxie could help him step into a higher level, or even the limit. The limit of speed. The limit of speed. The only question now is whether you're worth my effort or not. Jun Moxie thought deeply. Mei Xuan and Qian Sun rushed all the way. The speed of these two was already amazing, and there was no hindrance along the way. In just a few days' time, they had already rushed back to Tiannan, Tianfa Forest. And now, the experts from the 3 Holy Lands were still recuperating in the barren mountains. They would definitely not come to kill them. Jun Moxie's landslide had caused them huge trouble, and it would be difficult to recover without a few months of rest. However, as soon as they entered the Tianfa Forest, Mei Xuan immediately flew into a rage. He was so angry that his belly almost burst. The Tianfa Forest was no longer as gloomy as it had been in the past. There were colorful ribbons fluttering everywhere. It was unknown where these colorful ribbons had come from. Almost every tree in the forest had colorful ribbons fluttering in the air. It was as if a rainbow was swaying in the sky. And, the tops of those 1,000-year-old and 10,000-year-old trees were the ones with the most colorful ribbons. Whole strips of red ribbons were hanging on them, swaying in the cold wind, and making a rustling sound. Looking at the ground, Mei Xuan was shocked again. All the Xian beasts above the 5th level had a red cloth belt tied around their waists. Each of them wore the red cloth belt as they passed through the thistles, scurrying back and forth in the underbrush. In a short while, they had turned into strands. Comparatively speaking, the high-level Xian beasts were wearing red belts that were in much better condition. Especially those Xian beasts above the 8th or 9th level. Each and every one of them raised their 2 front paws and walked with their heads held high and their chests puffed out. The red belts around their waists were tied tightly. Underneath the red belts, each and every one of their furry buttocks swayed left and right. However, each and every one of them still put on a very serious appearance, as if they were very honorable. When Bear Mountain, Long Crane, and the rest of the Xian Beast Kings appeared, Mei Xuan and Qian Sun's eyes widened. The 6 Beast Kings, Bear King, Tiger King, Crane King, Lion King, Monkey King, and Eagle King, walked with their heads held high. They lined up neatly to welcome them. Each of them walked with a majestic gait. Mei Xuan and Qian Sun felt as if they were looking at 6 bridegrooms. Because these 6 Beast Kings were all dressed in red. There were even flowers in their hair. Along the way, the red light was dazzling. Their faces were full of joy, and their bodies were full of pride. However, each of them looked at Mei Xuan's body ambiguously. Then, they hurriedly stood up straight. Did something good happen in the Tianfa Forest recently? Mei Xuan frowned and looked at the 6 people in front of her suspiciously. She could tell with a single glance that the strength of these fellows had greatly increased. If they were to be classified by human standards, then any one of these 6 fellows would have the cultivation of a superior supreme. Moreover, all of them were at the peak of the superior supreme level. Just one more step and they would be able to enter the ranks of the superior supreme. This kind of shocking improvement was unbelievable, but it was also a pleasant surprise. Jun Moxie's pills had really played a very, very big role in this. Cough cough, isn't boss's return the most joyous occasion? Bear Mountain King coughed twice. His face revealed an awkward expression, as if he couldn't wait to show off but was forcefully suppressing it. He twisted his thick waist and actually made a polite gesture. Boss, please step into the palace. Palace. Fourth Brother Bear's mouth actually came out with such a high level of civilized vocabulary. This accident made Mei Shuiyan a little dizzy. When did this fellow become so cultured? The 6 kings clustered around Mei Shuiyan and escorted her to the core of the Tianfa forest. This was originally Mei Shuiyan's residence. It was surrounded by mountains and rivers, and the environment was quiet and beautiful. It was the place that Mei Shuiyan liked the most. But it was also the place where she was raped by someone the last time. However, the scene in front of her shocked Mei Shuiyan once again. The surrounding trees had been chopped down cleanly, leaving only the circle in the center as a barrier. The surrounding area of a few hundred feet had become a large piece of empty land. Not even a single blade of grass could be seen. Looking inside again, the construction had already started on a large scale. Trenches crisscrossed each other, and countless high-level dark beasts were sweating like it was raining as they did hard labor. But even though all of them were exhausted to the point of sticking out their tongues, their faces were filled with excitement and honor. It was as if being able to do hard work here was such an honorable thing. What the hell is going on here? Mei Shuiyan suddenly turned around and flew into a rage. She glared fiercely at Bear Mountain and Long Crane. You two, hurry up and tell me. If you can't give me a reasonable explanation, then you'll have to transform again. Mei Shuiyan raised her eyebrows, and her face was full of anger. Her eyes were cold and murderous. The 6 Xian Beast Kings were startled at the same time. After a long while, Lion King walked over with his head lowered. Big brother. Hee, isn't this celebration? Hee. Everything is for Big Brother's celebration. We brothers wanted to celebrate for you, but you're not satisfied, for my celebration. What kind of shameful excuse is this? You messed up my place, and you say it's for me. I'm not satisfied. I'll be damned if I'm satisfied. Mei Shuiyan raised her leg and kicked the thick-skinned guy away. She glared fiercely at Long Crane. Third Crane, you speak. Big sister, this is actually not that big of a deal. You don't need to take it to heart. Although, some people might not understand this, but the brothers of Tianfa will always support you and love you. We hope that big sister, this, bravely open your arms and embrace your happiness. I don't know what I'm talking about. Long Crane's sharp mouth opened and closed, and his mouth was full of strange words. At least, Mei Shuiyan couldn't understand what this guy was talking about. The more she listened, the more confused she became. That's right. Big sister, so what if you're a Xian beast? We're the race that contributes the most to the continent. Why are you still worried about those talkative people? Just do what needs to be done. Don't worry, if anyone dares to say another word, I'll immediately lead my brothers over and annihilate their entire family. The Eagle King's hooked nose twitched, and his voice was filled with killing intent as he spoke with righteous indignation. That's right. That's right. Open your mind and embrace your happiness. The rest of the Beast Kings echoed. What's wrong? What's going on? You're making me confused. Mei Shuiyan put her hand on her forehead and said painfully, can't you guys come out and explain to me what's going on? It's like this, big sister. The Monkey King jumped out and said, as soon as we heard about Big Sister's happy event, we immediately started. Wait. Stop. Mei Shuiyan finally grasped the main point. Happy event? What happy event? What happy event? The Crane King, the Lion King, the Monkey King, and the Eagle King all had a strange look on their faces. Bear Mountain and Earth Cracker were quietly and slowly moving backwards. Big sister, cough cough, don't take it to heart. In fact, this matter isn't shameful at all. The Monkey King was stunned for a while and quickly consoled her. Not shameful. What matter isn't shameful? Mei Shuiyan was fuming. What the hell are you guys talking about? Venerable Mei was obviously on the verge of going berserk. Isn't it because of you and brother-in-law? The Monkey King grinned and said in a low voice. Then, he gathered his courage and said, Boss, we're all very happy that you've found your own happiness. As for your happy occasion, we didn't have the time to attend it. So, we decided to celebrate it in Tian Fa on our own, and, he pointed with his finger and said flatteringly, for example, this is the palace that we prepared for you and your brother-in-law. Since you are married, you will definitely live together. Ha ha ha. Also, over there, I am going to ask people to plant that kind of fluffy grass. In the future, if you have children, you can play there. It is soft, safe, and convenient. Married? Children? What are you talking about? Mei Shuiyan's face gradually darkened. Her whole body was brewing a dangerous aura. She turned her head and looked at Long Crane like a sharp sword. Third brother Crane, explain to me. Long Crane's mouth opened and closed twice. He deliberated for a long time and finally said with difficulty, Big sister obviously didn't want us to know that you chose to secretly get married outside. But we've known each other for so many years, and we're already like family. No matter what, we have to do our best for Big sister. Ever since 4th Brother Bear and 9th Brother Tiger brought back the news of Big Sister's happy event, we all had a discussion and decided to celebrate together in Tian Fa. Besides, you asked 4th Brother Bear to bring back so much money, wouldn't it be a waste if we don't spend it? Ugh. Recommending my brother's book, Rebirth Sweeps the Wind and Clouds, an urban novel. This guy is trying to get into the list of new books. Everyone, go and help him. This guy is a lascivious man, and I reckon his books will be lascivious. Well, of course, we can read them, but we must keep our purity. Don't be led astray by him. You will all advance with me, and sooner or later you will all become as pure as me. I have no doubt about this. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.